All right, I'm gonna call the meeting to order. Roll call has been done by Rhonda. I need approval of the minutes of the June 28th. Motion made. Second, any discussion? All in favor? Good. All right, so tonight's meeting is primarily, I think, going to be addressing PDDs, plan development districts, and looking at the code we currently have on the books. So at the last meeting, we discussed what is a PDD and getting you all prepared to look at other sources that whether towns are doing, whether cities are doing, and maybe coming up with a discussion about does the PDD we have on Grand Island restrictive? And if we're going to make recommendations, what recommendations can be made? So in looking at this and digging into it, we looked at one town called Malta, and that in Malta, I think was a town similar to the size of Grand Island, and one that I asked you to look at when we first met, as well as looking at every other town and city that is out there. And I've done some great deal of traveling across the country and across the state of New York to look at the different code dealing with PDDs. And also had discussions with the building departments of other towns to talk about their law and how it's being played out within their community. So I want to start with the intent and the purpose of the PDD. With that, at the last meeting, I talked about the fact is how does it fit within the comprehensive plan? So I'm going to deal with the PDD as a tool. Like you have zonings in book, that's a tool. We're looking at mixed use, that's a tool to accomplish your objective. PDDs may be a way of accomplishing objectives. What the current zoning is that we propose to the town through the master plan. Those are the tools we use to actually try to direct development of Grand Island, right? So this one, in a sense, is not in the book. It's not in the master plan. But in the master plan, we do talk about 5 areas called hamlets in the town of Grand Island, which we asked that we address them in a way to see them unfold, if you will. So if you look at the master plan in the back, you're going to find illustrations of East River, Whitehaven. You're going to find Love Road. You're going to find Fair Village. You're going to find Ransom Road. You're going to find Long Road. And of course, you're going to have the big hamlet called the town center. In looking at the PDDs, the one thing that bothers me about the PDD is one, it's confined to 25 acres, which has minimum impact on Grand Island because how many 25 acres are actually out there, right? So therefore, they're only going to be in certain areas. So South Point is one of those PDDs. Rivertown, which is the center town, is another one of those PDDs. It's over 25 acres. They published the objective of 25 acres to be that.
What was the second one? What was the second one you just said?
Rivertown was one, and South Point.
Rivertown, okay, yeah.
Yeah, Rivertown and South Point were the 2 biggies. And then you looked at Amazon being one of those PDDs, it being a commercial PDD. It was on Long Road.
Is that a PDD?
It was going to be a PDD.
Oh, it was going to be.
It's not, it's M1. So in the PDDs that have followed, I know of 2 that actually have been accomplished, both of them sitting on Whitehaven. One is Gun Creek, I believe is a PDD.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably the only one that I've known since I lived in this island since 64 that actually is developing as a PDD. The other ones are not. There's another one by Channel 17 that's been on the books for nearly 10 years and it hasn't moved anywhere near to being a PDD, but it still sits on the book as being a PDD. Okay, so I want to look at them and see how they actually perform. So in our regulations, the regulations basically indicate on the 25 acres that you need to be at 25 acres to qualify to be a PDD. What's applied, they're given to you, and now we're not asking for them to be, there's nowhere do we actually turn around to find them as overlay PDDs, which is in the code. They're always referred to as PDDs, which means they're a rezoning change to the property itself, not a overlay to the zoning. The difference between the overlay and the PDD code, I think the PDD overlay expires if they don't do something. Whereas the other one doesn't expire unless the town board takes action to dismiss them. Come in, Jim.
Miley?
Have a seat.
Yeah, we start at 6:30.
Oh, I thought-
Don't feel bad. I
All right.
used to get it wrong all the time.
It's one of the, I think we might be the only boards.
We were the only board meeting at 6:30.
Oh,
That's
You didn't
because,
miss me.
that's because I run everybody to 9 o'clock. So I give you a half hour to warm up and then 2 hours of beating it up. So you just walked into me talking about PDDs and the subject. So make sure Mr. Watts has all of the information dealing with PDDs. And don't be surprised if you're way over your head on this one, because the bottom line, this is a deep, deep subject within community. So in going forward, looking at PDDs and how they've been unfolding in our community is important. But we also look at the code on how it's structured, that maybe the construction of the PDD we have currently in the books isn't really constructed in a way that it can be applied or managed, which is more the question I have at hand. If you look at the overlay, there's a management piece in it, meaning they were spark, they're not applied, meaning they actually done something. Whereas the other one doesn't. It doesn't have a lot of steps you need to acquire to continue to be a PDD, and therefore it sits there as an option for the landowner who actually requires it. But there's no hammer to say they need to do something of substance, like put in the road, put in the sewer district, put in a water district, or put in something that has infrastructure to it to allow this thing to really come alive. So in looking at other towns have automatic cancellations, which means that if you don't accomplish certain objectives by a certain timeline, you no longer become a PDD. It reverts back to its current zoning, and it's not a town board decision. It's actually expires. So these are,
It's what they sign up for in the first place.
Yeah,
So they know it expires.
they know it expires. They know upfront that once they give your PDD, that they're going to have to do it. So in the laws that I'm looking at today, is the intent. What is the intent of a PDD? And how do we, as a town, actually want to use that tool to develop property within a community right now? And how do we use that tool to actually move the master plan's objectives forward? So I'm not saying the elimination of a PDD as much as how does the tool work on behalf of our community? Now we're talking about a PDD becomes a developer's wish. They come in and say, we want to do X in this 10 acres, it is 25 acres of land, and we're going to have mixed kind of activities going. We're going to have B1, we're going to have M3 or M1, we're going to have R1A, R1B, R1C, and then we're going to have B1. So therefore, it's a mix of zoning sitting in a pocket of land. And then we turn around and say, we like that plan. Well, that then becomes the zoning of that property. Well, that's fine. The question is, we agree to the design that's been put forward under the PDD concept. The question is, how does it get built? How does it get moving forward to actually be accomplished? If the developer doesn't have the will or the ability to make one come true, then should it just sit there? Some in the past have said, once they get a PDD, that's fine, because we can always change the PDD to something else. But the problem with that is what the public dislikes the most. And that is, we created a PDD, the public's had the public hearing, they know what it is, and they may not like it, but they kind of say, okay, I can trust government is going to make that PDD come true based on the concept that's been put in front of them. 10 years later, though, another plan comes in because they can't make that plan come true. And that's the problem. And there's where the public is lost its trust in the PDD, because it can't guarantee that that project will get built that way, because now all of a sudden it's morphing into something else based on other circumstance. Other circumstance could be what happened at South Point. Wetlands came into play. All kinds of other elements came into play. Money came into play. So therefore, that morphed into something different than it was brought forward 30 years ago. So the question is, and from this committee, looking at the PDD we're putting in front of us, what is it we, the town of Grand Island, want a PDD to be, and what does it look like? And how do then we, the town of Grand Island, manage that property rezoned as a PDD to make certain is developed in the concept that's been brought forward on the first day and approved by planning board, approved by town board, and approved by public hearing. The public saying it. So with all that said, the three pieces we felt that need to be addressed. One, the intent of the purpose of the PDD. How do we want to see it used and how we think it should be used? And two, implementation and duration. Was we have implementation, we're going to implement it, how do we implement it, and what is the duration? We now look at the current zoning basically saying you have 5 years for a PDD to get developed. That's on 25 acres. If you're looking at changing the density from 25 acres down to possibly 10 acres, well, should it be the same duration of time? Or it should be proportional to the time that we're actually going to be affecting acreage of land. 25 acres, 5 years. Well, if you're doing 10, should be 2 years. So looking at size, what size makes sense on Grant Island? 25 acres, how many do we have? How many 10 acres do we have?
I don't think we have that data.
We do.
Well, we do an open space plan.
It always
We have
makes money.
identified some open space and as over 10 acres and there's like 187 of them or something like that. I'm not quite sure what exactly what those, but those are not necessarily all vacant land either. A lot of that stuff is already got structures on it.
Correct.
Well,
So
how many structures and how many businesses do we have that fall into that 25 acre cap already? I mean, are the majority there?
Maybe 3 or 4.
It's almost none.
yeah, there aren't a lot of 25
No.
acre.
So is
lots
it
there.
necessary to set a 25 acre limit?
Well, that's the question being hit. Yeah, that's the question at hand. The question is by the politicals and looking at it and saying, we want to move things, we want to move concepts forward, and concepts are coming towards us saying 25 acres, we can't acquire 25 acres. Rivertown was when they first started out, did not have 25 acres. They needed to buy 3 other big parcels to make themselves 25 acres to qualify for a PDD,
Which they did.
which they
Yes.
did.
Yes,
And
and it was available next
So what
door.
happens when
luckily.
they do that, and then they decide to sell one little corner off, once they've done it all?
They can't.
have
you
to keep
can't,
the whole
they lose the
line,
PDD.
But once it's built out and done,
Well, it depends. If we change it to 10, because it could.
No, you can't change, because the blueprint is the
Yeah.
plan.
Fine.
So if it says
Oh,
I'm
that's
gonna put
gotcha.
these buildings here, and they get 90% of the way, they can't say, well, we're gonna sell that little corner.
That's right. That was our open
They
space,
have
but
to
we
go
don't need
back
it
and
now.
start the whole process all over.
Right.
Gotcha.
I mean, that's a good question, because the question comes out is, how strong is the PDD in implementing it? How strong are we in making it conform to what was been approved?
I was thinking dense budget meant more 3 years down the road, I decided to go subdivide that corner out or ask for a subdivision and sell that.
After the project's complete.
Right.
But you have to have a new zoning because the zoning is now the PDD.
You'd be-
Yeah.
Very restricted.
Don't can't take the piece out.
you can't take
Yeah.
a piece.
No.
It's zoned
It's all
that
one parcel then.
It's all one
I know it's
parcel.
like a 5% difference or
Well,
something.
you gotta
add into it to make the percentage of the property.
Once you find the sell my
you're
corner,
done.
it's gonna be zone PDD.
Okay,
So,
that's not restricted, right?
well, the PDD is gonna be whatever that blueprint
A
was.
detailed plan.
Whatever that drawing was, what you
So
saw.
if I'm gonna put 5 townhomes there, I could get this much done and say, okay, I'm gonna sell that corner off, but you've gotta build them 5 townhomes like the blueprint said. So you could bifurcate the sale of changing owners,
But it's not.
but it goes
strategy.
with,
Well,
well, you would, if it was like a small builder like me, I might say, yeah, I'll buy that, and I'll just give me the plans and I'll just go build the 5 little townhomes. Cause that's more my speed.
Right.
So, but you can't say, okay, I'm not gonna put 5 townhomes there, I wanna put 1 single family home there, cause the PD is already established.
and it would still have to be completed within the time frame that was established. In the beginning.
Well, it's usually they give you stages. It could
Right.
take years to develop them.
Right.
You can say, I'm gonna do it in 6 phases. Phase 1 might take 3 years, phase 2 might take 5 years.
Yeah, and a lot of these things just fall by the wayside. And there's not a lot of accountability for them too, but I think that what you're talking about, Jim, is to put teeth into it, so there's accountability.
Yeah, but the only problem is if I get a PDD, and once I've done something on the land, not engineering drawings or anything, once I went there and says, okay, I'm gonna develop phase 1, and I develop phase 1, you can't take the rest of it away from me under the current law.
No, But if you're gonna go and turn it into a farm lot and say, well, I've done something, that's not
No,
part of the usage.
no. You
That's
have to
not,
put
part-
in
that shouldn't be,
water line,
Right.
or sewer line,
Right.
you have to put some investment in the
Yes.
property towards the PDD.
right,
So like the one on Whitehaven that's been sitting for 10 years, if he would go there and put 15 lots of water line in, now you can never take his PDD away.
Right.
Because he's put the money up front.
Right.
put The money in it,
but he hasn't done it.
but he hasn't done anything. He renews his permits.
What
No.
permits does he
He
have?
has sewer and water permits.
He has permits, but
But
he
he
has,
just keeps renewing the permits to keep the permits active, but he hasn't physically invested any money in the property.
so technically, he has not done anything
No,
with that
he hasn't
property.
done
So the permits don't really
No,
count.
they don't count.
So if we said, guess what?
It's
You
an
can't.
argument, but it goes.
So if we said you haven't made progress on that PDD and by law, we could hold a public hearing and revoke your PDD on that according to our code.
I don't remember where it is in the code, but the town board does have the
It
right
does,
Okay,
it
yeah.
does,
to come back, I think, after a
It does.
couple of years.
Yeah.
and
2
say,
years.
"Hey, you haven't done
in
anything,
2 years,
we're pulling your PDD.
Right.
But they just have never done that.
right.
We're doing that in Amherst right now with Northland. It didn't take them that 6 months. They said, get your ass over there. We're gonna yank all your zoning.
Well, that's the issue here in hand, is that if you have a PDD, there's gotta be a hammer to it that says that you need to perform to it.
Yeah, it says unless approved schedules are not met, and except, so basically, notwithstanding any other provision of this code, the plan development may be approved for construction stages. And set approvals for later stages shall not expire for failure to commence construction within a specific time frame, unless the approved schedules are not met. And except as noted in this article, it just seems like there should be, there's something saying in there, right? Am I reading that?
Well, it's
But
The
it's-
not,
schedule could be 5 years.
But the
they
town,
have to
but the
keep on
town
it.
board needs to be the one implementing the change.
To take the next step.
it's,
The town board's required to make the next step.
but it also says is any planned development stage where construction has not started within 2 years
Yeah,
from the date of approval, or has started but the schedule of improvements have not been substantially adhered to, the town board approval or notice that they can terminate it by, they have to have a public hearing to terminate it.
Well, I think that's what happened at Northtown. The guy started building there and then he just quit.
You just stop and try to blame COVID and they weren't having any of it. Like get building or get, sell it. I don't care what you put in the ground. But that's a different environment of development than we're up here, of course. Just the
I mean,
scope.
South Point has moved forward after 30 years and they're starting to move forward. But again, after those 30 years, the wetlands really came to be a huge issue for them. And a lot of what they wanted, they could not do with the wetland issue. So the project got really scaled back.
So do you believe that at South Point, the construction has started there? Or,
I believe that they have, because I think I see stone going coming in there. They must be doing water lines.
I mean, I haven't been down there in a while.
What's all the stone piles? Oh, that's only bike path?
But they're considered that started.
Yeah, well, they were supposed to do the bike path and then move forward with. They got all their approvals tonight, so I think they got all their approvals, but just recently,
I don't think that's all in the thing book yet.
the approvals,
No,
oh, the money, well. Again, so they've got all approvals, and if they don't do something, the town board could go back and say, we're pulling it PDD
When did
within a 2-year time frame.
Right. So how did it go from, on that project, how did it go from PUD to a PDD?
I think PUD just got phased out, completely phased out.
PUD got phased out.
PUD got phased right out
So
years ago.
PUD, you think in 2004, the PUD got
I-
pulled and be replaced by
I don't know the
PDD?
exact time frame, but yes, PUD got phased out, PDD came in.
Because I thought that maybe the PUD was greater than 25 acres, and then the PDD was the difference between 50 acres and 25 acres in the plan unit development. Judy and I were talking about River Oaks today, and going back on
You were PUD,
PUD,
right?
plan unit development.
Right.
So in that, we looked at it and we started really doing some reverse, and Judy got really more ammunition than anybody. because she found out that the PUD that actually got developed wasn't a PUD. It was actually a concept with 13 different zonings within it. And so the PDD was actually the zone property
And
that was zoned for
and the big
different
kicker
pieces
for
in the
Yeah.
fabric.
It's like the concept was a PUD and they called it an application for a PUD when they did the resolution. But they had 13 separate parcels that were rezoned differently from what they were residential to maybe, a business, commercial, residential, and a theme park, plaza, everything that they were going to have down there.
Yeah.
So I mean, I went through them today and I sent him the actual copy of the resolution. The funny thing is what's interesting is that this was passed in May of 1970. The PUD code in the town code was done in March of 1970. So it's like they created this PUD code for River Oaks, the 1,300 acres that they had up there.
That's
They
kind of-
probably did.
Sure they did.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
so without having the history buffs in front of us, okay?
Yeah.
We gotta deal with the reality of what we want.
Right.
Okay, if you wanna lower the expectations and say, we'll take 10 acres for PUD,
Well, this would be a good
then fine.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that. I mean, but you have to have, I think there has to be
A termination.
a termination point. Like I said, starting and just putting in bike paths for South Point isn't a start to me. I think it needs to be pipe work of whether it's water line or sewer, because the sewer's going in first, the water line goes in second, utilities third, street fourth. But it's really that simple. That's how it's built.
I believe they did the bike path as a whole nother thing.
It's just to give, I think it's for investors that are in the background, looking to see that things are moving
But
forward.
just like what Judy's saying, they did the PUD for that area. They're really trying to do the PDD for Holiday.
Right.
It's basically the same thing.
Yeah.
It's in
There's different time frame.
Yeah. And
Frank got his thing created for him. Well, it wasn't
Well-
Frank then, but it was Caldwell or somebody like
The
that.
crowd was developers.
Right.
And then all bellied up, and Frank bought pieces after the fact. I mean, Frank,
Right.
George Smith was in there,
Yeah.
a few
Yeah.
other people, and so Bob Weaver was in there. There's quite a few different people that tried to make it a something, but the economy never allowed it to snowball coming down the hill. It kept melting the snowball. You know what I mean? The economy stopped it. Great idea, but not for Grand Island, you know? I just came from one in Notre Dame, and this drop dead gorgeous right across the street from Notre Dame, in South Bend, Indiana. That's all private development. Puts Notre Dame to shame because they're 4-story buildings right there, 3 stories are apartments. And then it drew in, you got the college kids, the 25 to 35-year-olds, and the 65 and up crowd, okay? Because that's the way it's going today. Everybody wants that. That's where the structure is. That's why this is so important to Grand Island. Whether you like it or don't, that's what's gonna keep coming in front of us because that's what's selling. You've got such a small opening now, 35 to 65, that are willing to buy a house. Okay, and people have to understand that. That drives the economy, not us. We have to come along and corral it somehow, and that's what this should do. This should, if you give it an acreage number on it, an expiration date, beginning and end. You don't need to sit there and have vacant land sitting there. If you're not gonna develop it, okay, guess what? See you later. We took your fees, we took your thing, and I make sure the fees are paid up front.
I mean, you have to
Yeah,
have,
they want an escrow for everything. But some of these things have performance bonds that are also associated with them. To say, if you walk away and you leave it, you want to make sure that other things are done, kind of like solar thing. But
I mean, you have to
Yeah,
have,
that's enough solar.
you have to have growth for the people that want to come here. You have to have amenities.
I don't disagree with you. We can't.
And I
As
think
a
I've been
developer,
here
we-
35 years, and I think that's what I've seen the whole 35 years is like, okay, we got a Tim Hortons and Taco Bell. But you need more than just that stuff.
And that's it. The
Yeah,
idea
well-
of the apartment with the businesses on it.
Business, apartments, you need some, just like a mall. What's a mall have? Anchors.
Yeah, but that.
Yeah.
no,
We
it's a
really
fine
don't
apartment.
have any anchors here.
Had nightmares when I moved here.
You know, like,
The mall
It was
was
still
falling
pleasant.
apart for the same reason,
right.
because everybody decided like him, right?
Mhm.
You know, he's ordered 15, what?
Yeah.
But I'm just saying is that that's what everybody's doing. So our job is looking out 20 years from now is to see what today's bringing us and what the future is gonna be. And today it's bringing us right now, every other town around us is apartments above businesses, cut and dry. I don't care, it's just
the money.
one
right now.
unit business, that's it, and that goes back, now wait, go backwards in time. City of Buffalo, what you had hangars, whatever downtown, apartments above,
Mhm.
okay? Then the building codes changed, can't do that no more, so all we had was the business down below, none of this was there. Now, the building codes change again, and we can go ahead and make fire suppression, we can do sprinkler systems and bring the apartments back above. That's why Buffalo finally came back to life. Niagara Falls will never come back to life, but but it's there. You know what I mean? The possibility exists if you have the people
They
in
had the
place.
same thing, brick and mortar and apartments upstairs, and then they chased the apartments out
Yep.
and all of Main Street went down the drain.
Exactly.
Yep.
Okay, let's get back on to the
Go,
PD.
go on with it.
Okay, so what I want to do tonight is basically look at the PDD law we currently have. And I'm not about to reconstruct the PDD law we have, other than talk about the intent. If you're going to change this code we have as a PDD, these are the things that we need to address. And the plan use development, the purpose, I think the purpose makes sense for what they're actually saying. But how we actually unfold that purpose is another issue. So I wanted to talk about that real quick. Who likes to read this? I'm good at reading aloud.
No, the first paragraph of ours or
Our law,
our malt
which is B, purpose.
purpose. The provisions of this section establish special procedures for amending this code to permit the mapping of planned development districts and should be read in conjunction with those articles establishing district regulations. The procedures herein established are intended to substitute procedural protections, for substantive regulations in recognition of the fact of that traditional density, bulk, spacing, and use regulations, which may be useful in protecting the character of substantially developed and stable areas, may impose inappropriate pre-regulations and rigidities upon the development or redevelopment of parcels or areas which lend themselves to an individual planned approach. Mess.
Not understand a word.
Yeah.
That's why I had
Yeah.
you read it, because I was stumbling over that, because
I'll
I'm
let you get
looking
out
at
of that. I'm afraid with that if I wrote it. for you. Yeah,
I was,
someone got paid $20 an hour, I bet you.
I guarantee it.
Oh my goodness, I didn't bring the one that
yeah,
I
it's
liked
two
about.
sentences.
Yeah.
Unless you get, unless the purpose of the. Whatever.
Yep. Yeah, that's,
Well, on the planning board end of it, the code book is gone and the blueprint is the code.
Yes,
So that's your purpose. All your regular regulations of size and setbacks and, all your sheets that show us, what you can do in this district and all your pullouts and, in this district, you could do, this, and this, all that's gone. And the blueprint is the building code.
Can you tell me though how that?
We don't have to accept the blueprint.
Well, that was my next question. Is that if I'm obviously put added pressure on you guys to review them, because any decision within has to be made out of opinion, right? Or out of on debate. If you don't have a guidebook to follow anymore, but is that better or worse? Do we get better projects out of that? Is it but it's harder, or is that too much of a generality to ask?
we don't have that many PDDs here. We only got like 4 of them, so.
Not to beat a dead horse, but when Amazon came in, they wanted the PDD. The code book says because of the size of your building, you need 4,200 parking spaces.
Mhm.
They only wanted to put in 1,800. So for us, that was a benefit.
Right. Was
Less-
the benefit from the
less
landscaping was a
pollution,
benefit? Like,
less-
most of the project was a benefit.
More grass.
Concrete jungle.
They wanted taller light poles because of the semi trucks, and our code I think says, for 1 foot, they wanted 40 foot, but vice versa. But there was a lot of a lot of the things that they were asking for were a benefit to us. What seemed to not be the benefit was the height of the building from 45 feet to 97 feet.
Mhm.
So, but again, that blueprint would have been the code. If that was accepted, they didn't need to go to the ZBA where Dan's at and ask for parking variance reduction, the street lights, I think some of the entrance ways were a little small. They didn't have to do that because they skipped the ZBA by doing the PDD.
Right, but, and for all intents and purposes, what you're saying is true. The purpose of this is to make the blueprint, the code. And before they get the blueprint, before they get the PDD accepted, they still have to go through.
They still have to go through
And
the
if
process.
it doesn't agree with current code, well, then that's the discussion to be had. Are we gonna let it go or are we not?
Well, that's the kicker, because if you come in front of me now, I can say, well, wait a second. You know, that M1, you can do this, and this, and you want to do that.
Right, and that's
So-
before it's accepted.
Right, before it's
And then after it's
accepted. So,
accepted, you gotta follow your plan.
right, the plan is the code.
But in the planning board end of it, okay, you guys can still beat it up all day long to get what you're looking for. And you just said Amazon came in and gave you better and stuff that you enjoyed,
In something.
okay, in something.
Yeah.
The only stumbling block was the height, and that'd be funny, you take a tape measure off that freaking Holiday Inn down there and add the elevator shaft on top, that's over 95 feet. Okay, and so I just want to point that out to people that we have buildings bigger than that here, that were,
And
well, and don't get me wrong, I remember the days and the arguments back then, okay? About the Holiday when it first went in, it was too big, too whatever, too,
and the
it was
Amazon,
out of septic system.
Amazon's footprint was too big. Well, if we go to the medical facilities on Staley, I
It's
believe they're
identical.
bigger.
I agree.
For the
And the
footprint.
traffic's even higher and then on
Yeah.
crappier roads, I'm surprised nobody's died there.
But on the better project discussion, if he goes and builds right now to M1, to the current zoning, is it a worse project if it was Amazon or whatever's going in there next? Or is it better? We would have got, the date I had, not in the process, but outside the process, you got to fully, just a landscape, the setback.
Yeah, there's no landscaping in M1 and
Right, could
Amazon was
have paved up 12 feet away from people's back door, 17 feet.
1,400, 2.5 mil per tree. So they were given a lot.
It was a
I
better
just think
project.
that it was just the mindset in general that was like, we're not ready for this.
Well, sure. And that's where I go back to like, it stinks, but when you're in these positions, that's where leadership kicks
I
in.
haven't been to the
You know, like,
facility
you
that
have to
did the
think.
Hamburg. I don't know if anyone's been by that one yet. It's all. I don't know.
I'd be fun, David, but
That's a
Amazon
nice
just
money.
got approved in 6 months from Tom Niagara, from
Less.
start to finish.
Less than.
And
Without.
Town of Niagara is giving them
Yeah.
tax money like no tomorrow. We're gonna get 10 million bucks to spend whatever we want. To me, it was insanity not to take it, but that's me as a taxpayer, and as a developer, that I think that was wrong. And we nickel and dimed to death on all the little environmental things that we wanted.
But my argument is that was a PDD.
Right, so
So-
that's a good thing, is what
So
you're
why
arguing.
why didn't that come to fruition if the PDD is such a great idea?
Well, the PD doesn't make a project work, a PD makes a project workable. You still have to entice a developer, still gonna make a decision with their money at the end of the day, an end user. I mean, at the end of the, I had multiple conversations way before they ditched, and it was never about what some people on West River thought. They were like, that's an annoyance, try going to New York City and doing one of these, which they walk from those, right? The whole deal was, what's the best deal for us? And at the end of the day, it wasn't the best deal for them. But that doesn't mean that we didn't go, I think we went about it wrong because we don't know what we're doing in a situation. I think inexperience shows itself immediately in a negotiation or a process.
Well, I think that's like what Jim's saying is that we need to fix some of the things in the PDD so that they work.
Yeah, that's like saying, I want to go fishing and I'm starting with a whale. Like if you're trying to learn to fish in terms of changing a PD on the biggest, with the biggest people, with the biggest lawyers, like, so you start this change in PDD against a situation you'll never fish again. Right, where we're trying to do, I think, is, this is a really great example, Holiday Inn, or even South Point to some extent, or Rivertown, these are ones that we should recode to, not the one that's gonna never come again,
Right.
you
So,
know? Cause that's hard to, like, I don't, we had our things together, it was still a bit hard.
so the code, here's the thing is, other towns make it a little easier. A plan unit development, a PDD, is a special zoning district that is intended to provide for design flexibility in combination and mixing use into integrated land use units. It is not intended for normal changes to the existing ordinance requirement that are established in the various code, various zoning district codes. The district allows for the deviation from standard ordinance requirements as long as those deviations continue to meet the intent of the ordinance. The district allows for an appropriate combination of uses, which is incorporating various types of residential and non-residential uses into an overall project. To me,
Where are you reading from? What was Malta?
no, this one's coming.
Malta
This one's
was much
coming-
clearer than that, actually. That's not been Merriam-Webster.
Well, try this one. If
definition
you
of
have to
coding.
follow the ordinances still, though, then what's the point of the PDD?
Well, if you follow the ordinances of property, now this is almost to the point where you're talking about an overlay. In other words,
Right.
we say to that, we're gonna go to a PDD. But the PDD, to me, I'm emphatic about this one piece. It has to have an automatic expire. It cannot turn around and be
I agree.
contingent on an action by a government to turn around and take it away. It's gotta be more of automatic. You don't meet these definitions, you don't meet these goals. The bottom line is you do not have one. And that way, it's the waters, if the glass is half full or half empty, it's the half empty piece that's coming forward. And then the issue comes down to me is the performance got to be put into play. And I think that that's where we're lacking, because to just turn around and just keep my water and sewer permits up to date and being paid for doesn't meet that. And so therefore, if we use the PDD in that fashion, then it's being misused. And that's what's making it a very bad ordinance for the town of Grand Island to even have it. Because of that, so one, they stay forever, they never go away, or two, they come back as another version of itself in the future.
And a good example is the Whitehaven piece. That's total build out. There's no green space there.
Yeah.
Currently, with the PDD, you need 25% green space. So when he got approved back then, 10 plus whatever years ago, it's total build out.
Total build
It's
out.
concrete jungle. Houses, lot after lot after lot. There's nothing in there.
Which one are you talking
The
about?
one where the sign is out front, where they're gonna maybe put a
In
fire
Project
station.
17.
Oh, okay, that
So-
one, yeah.
If it has a kickoff clause, then that would have died. They would have had to come back, and then we would have said, well, oh, wait a minute, we want more green space now.
All right,
Well, the-
So it makes sense.
it does make sense. So Eric, what does Malta say?
Malta says, generally. With a period, that's a whole sentence, generally, so you know, you're kind of a little bit deep.
It's a long one too.
The regulations for planned development districts are intended to provide a means for the development of entirely new residential, commercial, or industrial subdivisions, parks, or estates in which certain economies of scale or creative architectural or planning concepts may be used by the developer without departing from the spirit and intent of this chapter, while substantially benefiting the town in a manner not otherwise available through development under the town's existing zone.
Which
And
is-
in the paragraph two, not to read the whole thing, it's very interesting that they have different, it's 10 unless it's 3 acres for commercial if, and then at the bottom, the very last sentence, the proposed development shall conform to the town's comprehensive master plan.
Right.
That's the roadmap,
Yes,
not code, not anything else.
yes.
That conforms to the plan, not the plan conforms to that. That's what's backwards to me about it. Like, you make a plan and say, well, there's all these rules that counteract the plan or make it difficult, and then someone goes, why did the plan never follow?
So when you say if we make Holiday Inn, a Radisson, a PDD, and then we turn around and look across the street,
It's not.
it
doesn't
doesn't
the
fit
plan.
the plan.
That's my argument. So I don't know if that's fair, I don't know if that's legal, I don't know where that ends up. When you ask me, as a person who likes to debate, I'm like, I don't care what you think is fair. And this fits what we're trying to do, that doesn't.
What you read there also, I think, fits Rivertown.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Because
it
there's so many different parcels that were zoned differently,
Totally.
that you really couldn't have done anything It was,
sensitive, right?
right, it was gonna work out unless
for
you
sure.
put this overlay over.
Yeah. And the
So it
thing
made
is,
sense.
yeah, and I want to make one point very strong, because anytime you're writing code or trying to make a law, you should never use a particular project as your model to make a law.
Right.
You should always make a law that basically is such that you can use the university across Grand Island and not be that, well, we made one for River Oaks, therefore it fits anywhere in Grand Island. So I'm always cautious of saying, you don't ever take a project and then turn around and say, well, now we're gonna make that work because we're gonna make it PDD just to make it work. The question is, does it work anywhere else? Does it work? And does that open Pandora's box mean it can work anywhere where maybe we don't want it to work everywhere, right? That's the key. And so,
That's hard, though. You need a catalyst to bring, no one just sits and goes, you know what, today, let's think about this. This is messed up.
yeah.
Usually a project is a catalyst for change.
Well, that's why we're talking about all the projects. We're talking about South Point, talking about Amazon, talking about, South Point, we're talking about Rivertown. I mean, all the projects we're looking at, can we write or present a code that basically is fit them, all of them, so that each one is unique, because one's in the center of town, one's on the waterfront, right? The other one's way out in the industrial area. But the question is, can we write a code to basically say, if you want PDD in the arsenal, how we want it to look and how we want to intend to use it? Because the question is number one, does it fit within the comp plan?
Yeah.
It's not addressed in the comp plan.
Do we put that in the code? That it has to fit, like, is in Malta's code?
It's in there.
It's in there.
It's in their code.
So the bottom line is, and the reason this is not in the code, because the master plan is looking at land use across Grand Island. And therefore, we look at the zoning map to be the thing to implement. Now, we can count on we have a schedule that says what's going to happen in R1A. We have a schedule that says what's going to happen in R1B, what the setback's going to be, and side yard is going to be, and on and on. It's all structured. So the planning board knows you're in R1A, well, these are the rules. This is B, this is the rules. A PDD, whatever it is.
Jim, the very first paragraph says, while substantially benefiting the town in a manner not otherwise available for development under the town's existing zoning.
Got it.
So that's the intent of it. It's
It's
a
intelligent
tool to
design.
use,
Yeah.
tool to use when there is no set
And
zoning.
And that's exactly right, because the master plan came up with two concepts, and I'm going to use East River Road as being it. In their concept, we had two. We didn't do one charrette on this deal. We did two charrettes on this deal. Where we turn around, we talk about the land use being what it is. This is a hamlet. We're talking about the golf course. We're talking about the acreage over here. We're talking about the business district that's in play. We're talking about the hotel. We're talking about the hotel here saying purple is existing. The color above it means business downstairs and residential upstairs. We're saying that. In this plan, we turned around and said, it's all commercial part of the hotel. We're not asking you to change it. But we are saying on the other part, put business downstairs in your business district and put apartments above stairs. And same over here behind the golf course. So the issue is, there's not a code that we have that we can make this happen. A PDD happens to be one of the mechanisms that could make this happen. But the bigger issue is, this is a hamlet. A hamlet. We, the planning board and this board and the town board, basically had the power to create a hamlet that all these different types of uses with different ownerships in that area could work towards accomplishing. A PDD is an element that could be used to accomplish it. The R2 is already there. The B1 is already there. They need to figure out how they're going to implement those two zonings. Would we agree to a PDD? Probably not, because the concept for a hamlet, it fits. And if you take out the business district and the hotel becomes a rental business, well, then we need the business district to support the residential district. So to me, the concept of us standing behind our plan is important. It also is one where I would turn around and strongly suggest the town board implement the PDDs, not the PDDs, to implement the hamlet studies we done on Grand Island. Because that would be answering the bigger question.
But also I think I haven't been here that long, like 15 years, but I don't think it's different in either town. As government changes and leadership changes, the plans get run away from, and then nobody, like, that's the compass for all of this. It's not somebody's fleeting momentary, I got elected and I'm gonna change, the, you know, I'm gonna and mess up a larger view of it. That's the only thing we have is that plan. That's why this needs to be hardened and all that other stuff.
Exactly. And the other issue, just so that for notation, the town board did approve us as a permanent board at its last meeting.
Nice.
So this board now is called a Comprehensive Planning Review Board. Okay, and it would be fully staffed, obviously, when we come to January 1st, when it's in New York. But right now, our board has been changed, so it is a permanent board. The bigger issue here is there's now a board in place that's actually going to be going on beyond elections. And therefore looking at the implementation of the master plan as well as all the other plans we have developed in our town.
That's really good information.
So Jim, that would be neighborhood commercial node, which would be a hamlet, right?
Correct.
So that's a 1/4 mile radius of walking distance or whatnot.
Yeah.
That's supposed to be commercial and residential or hamlet.
Right. So how do you feel about the intent of the one that's been, of the notation we have in ours versus the notation that we have on, and I hate to say Malta. I've looked at many, and Judy has too, and she may chime in on the one she saw as well.
Mhm.
But that to me fits more about what we want to have happen and makes the definition about why it's intended to be used. And also, I think it's the intent because of that, and because of what we've done in work on doing the comp plan, it does have its purpose, it does have its role. As far as I'm concerned. I'm not a big fan of PDDs under the current definition and implementation of how they're actually constructed.
No, I'm not for or against PDDs. I mean, obviously, they've got their uses in some places and others, but, the one thing I think that we have to look at is obviously, I mean, I don't know anybody reads the purpose, but I suppose it's important. I mean, the meat of it is all in the general rules and the regulations and what the codes are, but I think what I would look at is one of the sizes, if we want to leave it at 25, if we want to take it down for residential or change it for commercial or change it for industrial. I don't know about industrial, but we don't really have. Well, we have large industrial properties in M1, but I don't know if that, that's one of the things. But I think the most important thing is that termination clause. And I would also start looking at exactly what the fees are for the applications and some of the other things and terminate. Because I started looking at the fees for the application and it's based on acreage. But do the engineering fees come in there too? For the site plan approval, or does that come later after the application? Would you know?
I'm not sure about that.
That application today with the chat, because when you do a formal application, there is a fee before it goes anywhere.
Right.
Right, it's based on the
The
site.
planning board just passes the rec fees.
Right.
Like if you're gonna build 4 lots.
Right.
We want, instead of you giving us land, you can give us money, we ask for 500.
Yeah,
There's a fee structure out.
Pardon?
There's a fee structure out there for those.
Right.
Right, I know, I looked at it, that's why I'm asked, I was
Like
asking
the
because,
apartments pay per apartment. a fee
right,
per
no, I'm
apartment.
looking at the PDD fees. So that it's $100 for the first 2 acres and it's $50 for any acreage, after that. But then I started looking at the engineering fees and saying, site review. Does that come into the PDD part too? So does the engineering review the site plans for that? And because if it's over 10 acres, it's like $2,000. So I'm just wondering if those fees are part of it.
All the fees are part. You
All of
get
it.
stuck with everything that comes through.
So I'm just,
And as a developer, who's been through that many a time, I sit there and I go, boy, you guys make a lot of money for nothing. Seriously, just to come out and inspect a conductor line, they charge you $100.
Mhm.
To inspect a sewer repair, takes about the same amount of time, $150. But all these people are paid for as part of their salaries to begin with. As a developer, I frown on it, okay, but at the same time, I understand it. And that's the cost of doing business that we pass on to our customers. It's no different than sidewalks. I don't care if you tell me to put in sidewalks. I ain't putting them in as a developer. Putting it in as a homeowner. Okay, and that builder if you're selling the lots off to the builder, are responsible for them then. Okay, so.
Holy screw.
Yeah, if they do their job correctly. I kind of sitting here, I do remember that. But, so a lot of stuff is just passed on and passed through and is part of the cost of doing business, okay? So do I agree with the numbers? Hell no. I'd like them to all be part of, that's why we paid them the salaries they get to sit in that office all day. Okay, it's really up to you. Do you want development or you don't? And I think a lot of these fees are discouragements. And I think that a lot of these things become that way. And I think that's why you don't see a lot of developers coming to Grand Island. There's some out there plugging and trying. There's no, I don't even think there's a Grand Island developer anymore.
Well, I don't see that our fees are any less than, or any more than.
No,
anybody else, or
they're
everybody's
not.
got
It's
huge fees.
part
Some
of doing
towns
business.
increase them every single year. I mean, this town that I'm looking at, they increase their fees by 2.5% every single year.
I don't think we've changed the rec fees in years.
No, I haven't. So,
What about acreage though? I question acreage and how you keep the buffer zones in between zoning.
okay, let's talk to Judy's question. I like that one next. We'll go after that next. So the one that Judy turned around, and put on the table was size. Okay,
Mhm.
so what did Malta do? Malta came back and said, well, we don't believe that all development are equal. They kind of said that development or residential has a certain significance. They felt that the commercial had a different significance and industrial had a different significance, meaning that they had a different level of land use. In other words, if you're going to do a unit development, it shall not be greater than 10 acres for residential development. Commercial, 3 acres. Industrial, 5 acres. So
Why?
Huh?
Why? The why is easy. The why is because it benefits the town best to have those things. It gives you flexibility in your levying of this tool,
Your land use.
right? So we've restricted ourselves to the use of this tool pretty for a place that doesn't have, if we had, 25 acre lots all over the place, we'd be like, well, yeah, we don't want to deal with.
You have to look at how many PDEs Malta has, 54 of them.
But it benefits them, right? Obviously, if it didn't, they wouldn't have.
Yeah.
Well, yes and no.
Well,
They don't like PDDs. They,
Yeah, right. I don't like ice cream. There's 16 gallons in my fridge. and That's the same thing. But I may say one thing, but I tell you what, my freezer tells a whole nother story.
How come you didn't bring the ice cream?
If you're over from 25 acres, currently 25 acres is 25% green space. If you were to go to 10 acres, would it be
10% open space?
green space?
That's
Or should that number be higher?
Is that a guideline or a hard requirement to what you just said? Is that like
That's a hard
a
requirement.
hard requirement? Okay.
And you can't use parking areas or, that stuff in the open area, in your open space. So if it's 25 and 25, should it be 10 and 15?
Yeah, that's right.
But that's only an acre and a half. That's like, what, 60,000 square feet, 70,000 square
That's, I
feet?
think, where I was kind of going at what they're saying, like when you start lowering it down, then you have to keep green space, then you have to have buffers, then you gotta have, like, you're really, like,
Yeah, a percentage of an area is still going to be the same ratio of the area. I mean, obviously, if you take 25% of 10 acres, and you're only gonna have, 10 lots there, then, or I don't know how many lots you can put in 10 acres, maybe, what do you think, 20 or something like that? Half an acre.
How small you look at it?
Well, 40,
But
so
you're
you
talking,
lose 2, 3, 4 lots.
but you're talking 25 acres, 25% of 25, that's not the difference between, there's a whole lot of difference between 25% of 10 acres.
2.5 acres versus
It's still
6.5.
25%.
It's
Still 25%, yeah.
25% of a lower
We're
number.
using a percentage instead of a flat acreage model,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
I'm just curious if I came to you, it's a hard requirement. And I said, I want my PDD and I'd like a, what would you call that, deviation? That's my
Reduction.
reduction. I like a variance.
You'd have to go to ZBA.
Even if it's a PDD?
So you got, yeah. and you
We're
got-
still back checking the balance.
Well, they're checking and balances all
But
over.
hang on, if it was an agreed on PDD from day one, that would already be, you'd already have agreed to that, you'd already passed that.
Because it would be on the site plan.
You already passed it on the site. plan.
Right, but if you come in for the 25 acres, you need 25% green space. If you only have 20% green space, then you'd have to go to the ZBA.
Because
Saying
if
he
they're
would
making a
have
rule to
approval.
make the decision, now they're turning around, I want
Well, yeah,
to,
before
to challenge it.
the PDD is granted.
Right.
So you've worked that out, you've worked it through.
Right.
So like Rivertown came in, they didn't have 25 acres. They had to go acquire more property to get the 25
Correct.
acres, to get the PDD.
And they still.
And they met the
25%.
25%
They
green
did- they
space.
did.
Well, they got.
So they
the
followed the
pond,
rule.
So,
Well, that's not.
Well,
sometimes.
the pond is counted. You know, wetlands are counted.
Is this-
Green space.
Am I reading this small, is this 5%?
I'm reading it right.
Or is that rewrite? So it's that, I mean, 25 and 5 are
Are you looking at
20%
multi?
different. so you have to- Like, but still, like, it seems pretty substantial.
It's like anything else. He could come to me as the ZBA and say, I want to have less. Give me a good reason. Show me where the hardship is. Show me where the things are. We have 5 sets of rules that are real simple. If you can't meet those 5, we can say no again.
That's why I asked
Okay,
the question
so-
originally.
so
So you
then-
still can get a change, doesn't matter at 25.
Right, so you can.
You gotta negotiate it, this is a starting point.
It's a,
So
you're
the
gonna
town
come in,
decides.
he's gonna sit there and say, okay, you're gonna go to zoning board because you don't make this requirement. We really would like to have this requirement. That's all they're gonna do it at his end. Then they're gonna say, as a developer, well, we'll throw $150 at the zoning board. We'll go run our case through
Yeah.
them. And they do, and then we get people that go and sue us on top of it.
And then the ZBA,
You know what I mean?
Part of the process.
Right,
Well,
there-
Part of the process, it's allowed, and we have not ever lost a case, because what happens is it goes in front of a law judge. Law judge says, I don't care if Billy Sue down here has this, we're just dealing with your thing, and you have to show the things, and you weren't able to show the things of the criteria. If Billy Joe's got it over there, they obviously showed a criteria, but we don't do that, that's apples and oranges, we're just gonna stick with you.
right,
And that's what happens to people. They say, well, the guy down the way's got a bigger dock. The guy's got a true, a shed that's in the way of my sight line and things like that. It doesn't matter. We get tunnel vision. We're dealing just with your problem. So
Okay.
if he rejects it,
so the 25% though. I mean, the standard here right now, we're saying 10% in the subdivision, right? Open space, or take the money. Basically, take
That's
the
the
money.
best. Or there's a big,
No, we just get rec fees on per lot.
Per lot.
Division.
we're taking money.
So we
Take the
don't
money.
have to have any open space in the subdivision.
They have, I don't know exactly off the top of my head what the requirement is.
Well, look at Sandywood. Do they
subdivision.
have any, they've got how many lots there? 19 lots or 18 lots or something?
Yeah.
Yes.
So do they have any open space? Besides, I mean, obviously, open spaces have the lawns and everything, so I guess that counts.
Yeah.
They have a little bit in the front where the church was.
And the rest of it is just
Lot-
lots,
Lot,
green
house,
part of the lot.
house,
and
house,
green
house.
part of the lot would be open space.
It really boils on how big or how small you want the lot.
Yeah, so I think what people
They
do,
came in with a bigger size
Yeah.
lot, if I remember right, didn't they?
Yeah.
Sandywood.
yeah.
I
So what
think
I,
they hit 100 per.
yes,
Yeah.
so I think what sometimes a misunderstanding is that open space isn't necessarily open space, like here's a parkland, here's stuff that
right.
nothing's on
Pocket
it.
parks and-
Pocket park, well, you don't want pocket parks anymore, because the park department has got enough pocket parks to take care of.
Yeah,
They don't need any more pocket parks to take care of. So, they got enough as it is that we have.
As long as you have open space within the subdivision. Then the recreation could be, is they're sharing recreation somewhere else, but recreation fees are helping to develop those recreation spaces into better spaces.
Yeah, I'd like to see us have open space fees for commercial, but
Okay, let's go to the point in contention. I want to just nail this one and get rid of it. Let's lower this to 10 acres. Let's keep it at about 15%. I'll negotiate up on the thing, and that makes more sense, okay? And for the units and be done with it. I mean, we could debate this for the next 40 years. Quite honest with you, I don't care about Malta. I don't care about anybody else. We're talking about Grand Island.
Yes.
And I hate being compared to Lewiston,
Oh,
East Aurora.
Yeah.
Or any place else, because we're not those places.
Well, I'm
That's
not
where we are.
using them as an example as much as I'm using the language that they
No, I,
basically.
I got that,
Yeah,
Tim, and,
okay.
and I like this, the second one is much more simplistic that you read compared to Gottlieb book over here, but he likes Gottlieb book, so it's a perfect guy to read it.
No, it's just.
And he didn't bring any ice cream to share, so I'm really pissed.
Yeah,
But-
really.
But I think we should just start hammering some of these points. Dave gets them anyhow. They really don't like it. They're gonna come to zoning. Zoning is gonna beat it up backwards. So
Okay.
there's checks and balances.
Okay, so-
Okay, but you also, in all fairness, you have context for this because you do it for a living. I do not.
I got
He
that.
does not.
I know that.
We all have a different level, so we.
That's what
have
I'm trying to
to-
explain out.
we
when
have
I
to
say
work-
these fees
We have to work through this a little bit, so we have some, I don't really care that you do them all together, other than I go.
I want so you can
Confusing.
understand it. I wanna, as a developer, I wanna know as a developer, when I come in,
Check
that,
it.
that my architect or engineers are sitting there looking and going, what?
Yeah, I totally agree.
I'd rather know what you want, give you what you want, like Amazon did. Amazon came in and said, we're gonna wow them. We're gonna give them stuff that's not required in their things. And that's what they did. And that's why I made it easier for him to say, okay, this isn't what we got. This isn't our set of rules. You know what? I really don't mind this. This is kind of nice, all right? And so if a developer really wants it, he'll listen to the input of the planning board.
Mhm.
Okay, I mean, I listen, tell me what you want.
Unless you're venison and tops.
Right, right. No, understand, Tom, they deserve what they gave them, as far as I'm concerned, that it should be all the way around the building, should be faced, okay? You've done other towns, they can, I deal with those guys all the time. They can pull that same plan out of it and put it down,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
And, but Jim Rumsey wants to redraw it, because if Jim redraws it,
Mhm.
Is there a point, once you get down to a certain amount of acreage, then why would you go any other way? Because you're gonna have to, there's hoops you can go through as a developer and whatnot, when you can go in and say, look at this pretty thing, we'll add this in, you know, why would you do it any other way?
So if we take residential down to 10 acres, what does that give how does the town gain by that?
town gains all the time, you get taxes, number one, okay?
All right, well,
And you get
taxes
jobs,
anyway.
number two, okay, let's be honest, that's what it is. If you want money handed over by a developer, we're already doing it with recreation fees,
Yeah.
engineering fees, building permit fees, okay? You know how you like your pay tax? Give it to you and you say, look at all these fees that have been taken out before I even get to do anything. That's how a builder feels. Okay, I'm gonna lay out probably close to $100,000 in design and everything else before we even get in the ground. Okay, then I'll
That's
have
a no
Indian.
cost of business, though. I mean,
That's correct.
That's built into your total business.
That is correct. And then you get the Indians that come along and say, we want your land, and everything falls through. All right. All right. I just, all right.
Saying is that if we go 10 acres.
But I'm trying to point this out to you. It's even a time frame. I've got a whole issue on the time frame in about 2
We can
minutes.
already do subdivisions for 10 acres, and we have rules for those. Why should we let a 10-acre subdivision be developed under a PDD?
I think it should be on the land use.
Well,
That's
PDD,
all I'm asking.
but a PDD shouldn't be only residential. A
No,
PDD
no, I
basically-
know that, but.
Right.
Part
but
of
what I-
PDD is, to me, is commercial. Because I call apartments commercial, and I call business commercial. And if you're gonna put the two together, and that's what you're trying to do with a PDD, okay, it's all commercial. I'm not coming as a developer, and I have lots of land on the island, and I do have 25 acre ones, so I'm kind of, got some things going in my head. But what I'm saying to you is that if it's already zoned residential, that's why I bought it, it's staying that way. I'm not going out of my way to go through all the.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Why would anybody do a 10
No,
acre
you're
residential
normally-
for PDD?
Well, then you, with Malton's language, it's kind of an either or. Because they're talking about entirely new residential, commercial, or industrial subdivisions parts for states. So it's here, you know, choose your poison, it's either or. If we don't want to do residential 10 acre PDDs, take residential out. If you want to get mixed use, that's another, that's in there.
Now, you're not gonna come in if I have, like Dan says, if I have a piece of property, I'm gonna build a subdivision. I'm not gonna be looking for PDD because
Right.
I'm zoned subdivision.
Right.
Now, if I'm zoned something different, and then I want to put in some type of a thing,
But that
And
ain't
I
what
might-
happened on Whitehaven. It's all residential.
it's all residential.
Then is it a PDD or is it a?
No, PDD.
And PDDs can only be in
But,
sewer
but
districts.
Jimmy, that was back when, so let's move forward. That was back when I think there,
But I'm looking.
I mean, there's all kinds of accusations.
You don't
back
have
then
to
about
go
that.
out PDD, so if they want to build it under the residential town code.
Correct.
So the issue I'm getting at,
It would be 25% green
I
space.
don't know why they did that, but they did. It was a PUD, actually.
Oh, I see.
All right.
Why would you use it to circumvent something else?
Circumventing a lot of things.
So as a
So they
developer,
could use
you
another
don't
part
have to
of
give
it
up-
as their
Around
open
the-
space.
Around the
Like,
house.
another
no,
part,
no, you don't, you
Those
have to.
golf
have
carts became the open
25%
space.
green space.
And so.
No, in
Let's
subdivision.
cut the stuff out so everybody understands.
not in a
that golf
PUD.
course is the open
In a
space, where
PUD.
they want, that's what they
You can do
designed,
away with that.
that's what that board and stuff.
yeah, as
So I
open
could go
space
from
for public
75
use,
lots to
unfortunately,
say
it's
100
not.
lots.
okay, so the reason I think this conversation is going,
River Road?
is that,
Yeah.
one,
Yeah.
if the code is being
Public
used
use.
for a given reason,
Yeah,
and you
I
can
know.
use the land for another use, but the PD is being used for the developer's
No, what?
method to turn around and get more impact out of his parcel, that's not in the benefit of Grand Island, it really comes to the benefit of the developer.
There's supposed to be 10%
Right.
of the land there.
So the question is, how does the PDD, I mean, the benefit of the PDD shouldn't be a developer benefit package, it should be a town benefit package,
Right.
right? That's what I was looking at on the intent. The intent should be, it's a public benefit package, not a developer's development benefit package. So in other words, what is working for the town of Grand Island is within the PUD that makes it attractive. It isn't just turn around and taking, saying, well, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna give you 25 acres and you make yourself a launching pad. No, it's gotta be more than that. The whole project's gotta be benefiting the community in some method other than just getting a piece over here to be the benefit package. That's kind of like, I'm gonna pay to play. I don't want that piece. I want it to be benefiting Grand Island. I want to have a tool that says, I want to see that happen, but I want to see it happen in a time frame, and I want to see it happen. Not just turn around and say, well, I want that piece over here. It's give me a PDD and it never ends, and I don't have to ever be accountable for it. And I never get that piece, by the way, because it never got developed.
You have to also have in this time frame of the thing that, okay, like right now today, now you use the one on Love Road, the Army Corps of Engineers is in the whole pattern.
Yeah.
So that makes a developer who love to be breaking ground today and doing their thing, that they can't do it. So if you say 2 years, that thing already expired twice. Okay, so I'm sorry.
Okay.
You have to understand the gears that are working behind here that stop the developer from doing what he wants. Okay,
But there's a way.
Look at
to-
extension.
You could say 2 years, and if I'm
It's
in
stale.
I'm in a problem, I
Yeah.
can come back to the town board and say, hey, guys, here's what's going on. I
Right.
gotta have an extension.
And
And I
that's
agree
what
with
it
that.
I
says.
need
and that's
another
what if you look
2-year
at-
extension.
In the
Yeah.
whole termination.
I agree with that. I think there has to be the mechanism not to just say,
I'm not opposed to that. What I'm really opposed is that you have something for 10 years and you're always doing.
oh, no,
change your feet.
no, and I'm with you 100% on that one.
And
Okay.
they would have to,
They
they would have to
have
come
to-
in and show that hardship, not just
Correct.
say that
I
hardship.
mean, seriously, the Indian thing, I had that experience.
They're still
you know, so.
actively trying
Oh,
to
right.
produce their product.
Like Chris Shore said, I don't know
Right.
him, but I'm using it as an
Yes, yes,
example.
yes.
He's trying to move forward.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
He's come across
Yeah,
a lot of roadblocks.
Yeah.
So, but he's still moving forward, and it's not like the PDD sitting in Whitehaven that he just sold it to another developer, and that guy has no intentions of doing anything in the near future.
And I agree with you wholeheartedly on that. And that's how you have to expire. Your time expired. If something's being done and it's being worked on, it should just, and be almost an automatic extension like we do for zoning. If you come in and you get a zoning thing, it's good for 6 months when it expires. But if you come in the week before it expires and ask for it to be sent out because money, whatever happened, we'll give it to you a second time. Don't come to us for a third time though. You come the third time,
Shame on me. So let's get back and put some pieces to the pieces here. So what is the best intent that we want to have as far as a purpose? The thing we read with Malta is closer to the definition?
I kind of like what the statement that you made, that the purpose of this is to benefit the community. And I'm put it right up front. It's not to benefit anybody else, but our town, our community.
And it has to resonate with people who are like, when you do anything like, there's people who are for and against and loud now, and everyone's on blast now with social media. Well, you know, people right away, oh, we bend, we fold to whatever developers want. I have neighbors that say, I go, what are you nuts?
Right.
You know, and that, but this is getting used for the benefit, and that concept is out there. People just see it as, when you're gonna do PDD for, wait, you're giving special zoning to Amazon, so they'll come here. No, because it's not perceived as a tool that's used for the public's good.
Right.
Everything we're doing is for the betterment of you. Now, you may not agree with it. So there's some people, no matter what, if you put up more apartments, are gonna go, well, at least you can with integrity say, this is how we wield this tool. This is why it's here.
Right.
I think too, when Eric read this purpose and then Malta's purpose was read, Malta seemed like I could understand it a little easier.
Right, yeah. I mean, when we talk about the purpose, because the issue is it's gonna leave this room. Then it has to go to the planning board and town board. They got to understand what we're actually saying. This one here doesn't tell a story, where that one told a better story. And therefore, the planning board can get their heads around it, the planning board can get their heads around it, because, oh, yeah, I can agree with that statement. But right now, I think that what we have on the books doesn't cut it. It doesn't tell a story at all. It's kind of like political, or not political, legal jargon that basically says, oh, we put in place, okay, nobody understands, but that's how the, politicals put it, not the legals put it together. But
It gets so wordy. I think it's a tool that's intended to provide development that is not only substantially benefiting the town where there's no other means to do that in its existing zoning, but on the forefront, it's matching the town's comprehensive plan.
Yeah. Look at that. Just look at the quick side by side of Rivertown. Like, when you look at them and you talk about how is the PDD used, they can do this plan without one, right? This top one.
Yeah, it's R3.
This looks like where I grew up. This looks like Langfield, Perry Projects. Like, it looks like tenements, this top one. It's straight up cookie cutter, terrible. These are apartments people hate. That, like, so using a PDD to get to that is brilliant. Not taking this, which a developer can walk in the door and do a really crappy project. To me, like, if we're not using it that way, this is awful. Like, if you built this on here, then
well, the intent of a
back in the city
PDD
again. I wrote.
is to interject creativity into a design, a pattern.
Yes.
That's the real key issue about what is the PDD, what are one of the benefits of it, is that one, we want the best creativity to come out and say, this is the best creativity we can put on that parcel of land that has mixed zonings in it that will work and complement each other. Therefore, if we did this piece, we did that piece and this piece, and these are all separate, well, yeah, you can do that, you can do that, you can do that, but do they comprehensively fit?
Well, is it benefit the town, and the compass you use for that is the comprehensive plan.
Right.
Not benefit the town because the developer lives here, not benefit the town, benefit the town because the compass of the comprehensive plan points us towards that's what we're looking to do.
I think that's what they accomplished in Rivertown.
It looks
I
like
think
it
it
did,
is.
like for people who are upset about it,
They-
I don't know,
they
commercial
came
property.
in with really, we were like, wow, but like, here's some wow factor.
Yeah.
When you talk about the Tops building, I'm sorry, I said that, Mr. Rumsey, the architect. Hey, I went to Delaware and saw your Starbucks and I went, wow, what a nice building. And I look at what you're trying to put in front of the Tops and I go,
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, so
where's the wow?
why did Delaware get that
Right.
and we're getting that?
That's what we're
Well,
saying.
that's why they rejected it, sent them back,
Mhm.
which said that's a job. And I have 5 minutes, I'm just gonna come back in with that.
Mhm.
Okay, I mean, you can pull them out to pull the plan, that's what they want. Starbucks wants to be here, they want to be,
But did they get back? Did they?
They haven't come.
They haven't come
They
back.
haven't come back. Okay,
gotta draw it.
all right.
So this one says the purpose of a plan is development district classifications to provide for the rezoning of land to residential, commercial, and industrial development zones. This one says either jointly or separately in conformance with provisions and standards which ensure compatibility among all land uses, foster flexibility and innovation in site planning and development, and encourage sound design practices. It also says a development pattern that preserves the character of the town and is consistent with land use density, is in harmony with the surrounding neighborhoods and meets the objectives of the town comprehensive plan and town zoning ordinance.
Well,
That's what this one
I
says.
like that. I mean,
That's pretty plain.
Who's that one?
plain. This is the town of Half Moon, which is, is
It's a real name
north
there.
of Albany.
Okay.
It's about the same size as Grand Island.
yeah, I
See,
wanted
the town of
something.
Malta has an AMD headquarters. They have a huge chip plant, one of the largest chip plants in the United States. So they're like, and something else is headquartered there too. I can't remember what it was, but they've got some big industrial bases there.
So they're wealthy.
Yeah, but this one's more.
Well, the point of it all is, it's the point of the purpose is that it should be benefiting the town of Grand Island
Yeah.
on behalf of Grand Island.
Right.
Well, I like what
Yeah.
what you just read, you know, if we can wordsmith it down to not quite as long, you know.
Two sentences.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, you know.
Condense it.
Trying to get the idea of it. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
ours is
Okay,
probably written by.
it was written by Lauren. There's no question in my mind.
Yeah.
That's why I didn't want to read it. Sorry.
Well, but on the other hand, the details, the devil's in the details, because when they try to sort it out between lawyers.
Well, this is just the purpose. So
The purpose, I mean, the
basically,
intent and the
example.
purpose to me is important, because if the public gonna, if the public feels it's gonna be worked on their behalf, I think the public will turn around, understand it a little differently. But right now, I think it's been labeled as the developer's tool, and it should be a town tool. And unless we turn around and put the pieces in place that makes it so the town can actually manage these developments, then fine. But one of the biggest issues I had in talking to the different players, and I talked to Malta in great length, was that they felt that the 50 some that they had were unwieldy, and two, they couldn't pull them to closure. And the code you have in front of you, if you read it, it also finds out that any PDDs that existed prior to the adoption of this PDD automatically expired. And that's how they get rid of tons of them that were on the books, to get them back to a point where they can manage them. And that's why they stress that in their plan, you need to have automatic, because if you don't have automatic, there's no political will to turn around and actually terminate them. And that's what they felt was happening in their own. On section C of their regulations, they strongly suggest that you take it entirely out of their book. That their next revision is that they're going to wipe out section C entirely, because what they were trying to accomplish was trying to get people to be more creative in the single family townhouses and condos. And it was not effective. What ended up happening is they got smaller and smaller in size, meaning the units got smaller and smaller, because they were trying to meet the workforce issue and stuff like that. And they felt that that was a very bad tool to put into the document.
Because they got rich.
Yeah, developers got more rich off of it.
No, because the residents started complaining.
Yeah.
"Oh, don't build all that workforce stuff.
Yeah,
Don't make those little houses that are low rent places." We
But
hear
you
that
already-
all, they're like, sound like Grand Island.
You already have that fairly bigoted point of view anyway, that anytime an apartment goes up, it's, there's then all the bail racist terminology comes out and everything else, of who they want living next to or not. That's a bunch of garbage that you have to deal with anyway.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, quality living space, drives quality dollars, period.
Yeah.
Likewise, quality tenancy, and by the way, everyone we hire in the East Coast, I have 1,100 people, anyone we hire under 35 years old does not want to own a house anymore. Nobody. It's not the old people driving.
no,
In the future, like behind us, my kids, they think it's bizarre that they love their house they live. No, just rent and go where I want. I can walk. That's a different, I'm like, why would you want to walk? You have a car. It's different now.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of this has to, this isn't somebody getting rich because it's apartments only. They're building to the demand.
That's obvious that they're building.
Development is the for-profit sport.
yeah,
I
yeah,
have a 25 and 30-year-old,
Yeah.
both, and dad's a home builder, and dad offered them a free house.
Crazy,
And you
right?
know what? One's living in Williamsville in an apartment, one's living in Elmwood.
And loving it, right?
They love
I love it.
And yet.
But
Dad offered them a
Ran
free
for
house.
over 30 and
I
everything
think
over
this
the
stuff-
owns a home.
We build this right.
Within the last year.
It doesn't have to be a city, but same idea.
where things are going, is we're long range. So that's what we're supposed to watch and move in that zone. I think planned development district is something that's gonna be more and more because it's the apartments with the business below. So they can get their haircut that they don't get. They can get their pizza. Oh, they love the pizza. And, you know, small shopping, they're happy.
Mhm.
They really are. And if you look at, you're gonna go right to Amherst and see that. It's
Oh, yeah.
exploding.
Yeah.
It's exploding.
Well, they have mixed use
Mixed
zoning
use
now.
code.
Yeah, I know. That's
Instead
what
of
I'm
a
saying. That's why I said that.
Right, that's why.
You know, so.
Yes, the issue is that, at the end of this thing, I think we should talk about things that ought to be done. One is that we should look at strongly, town board, please fund or allow us to get funding to turn around and do hamlets. The second one is that we strongly need to develop mixed use zoning for the town of Grand Island. And I've had many conversations about, I like it, but there are Pandora's boxes to it and da. I think that we can actually make in mixed use. Amherst already has done it. We talked about that today.
They have mixed use districts as
Districts.
opposed to mixed use zoning. So it's here, you can have it. I don't know if you can say, well, I want to rezone this to a district. Like that these developments.
could be an overlay.
So, I mean, I haven't read the thing that they passed a couple of years ago, so I just, saw it today, so I went to go home and take a look at
So
it.
would you give a certain amount of time for an overlay to allow something to come in there on the property, or someone would put in for it? Or-
Well, I think the overlays are being not looked at as being a useful tool.
Yeah.
Then changing the zoning
Oh, I
entirely,
agree. I
really
just don't know how the
overlay
process
should be
works, that's why.
considered to be something that's there. I mean, but the problem is, if I'm a developer on Grand Island and I look at the code and it says, oh, you can do an overlay, but you gotta have it done in 2 years. Oh, you get an overlay, but there's, no time to expire. Oh, I think I'm gonna go with the full DVD, not the overlay, because the overlay basically says you expire after 2 years.
Mhm.
So why am I gonna take that? Because there's no hammer there on that one. That's why I'm not gonna take it. But if they both had the same hammer, that both expired in 2 years, well, then people may go for the overlay, meaning I'm gonna keep my existing code, my zoning, and then put an overlay on it. And that's what I looked at when we're looking at the mixed use. Your use stays the same, the overlay becomes the mixed use overlay. And then it can be specifically to an area. So the one thing they said about Pandora's box on it to me was, well, you can put it anywhere. Well, no, not if we actually say you can only use it in an overlay district. Then all of a sudden it cannot be all over the place.
But
It's gotta
not.
be
You
here,
could add
in
lot
here,
that
in here.
section.
Well, in this one, the commercial development also includes 3 and 4 family dwelling units. But I don't know if that necessarily means mixed use, but perhaps it does. I'm not really sure because it depends on how they approach it. And this one is, I got 5 years determination.
But that 5 years is more,
Yeah.
a better number than.
Now this
Way too short.
Half Moon, they make law for every single PDD that they do, so everyone is structured differently. So that the termination may be like started in 24 months, but you got 8 months to finish it, 18 or 8 years to finish it. Or it could be, you've got
Timeline.
6 months to start it and 2 years to finish it. I think it all depends on exactly what it is.
Came in at South Point. They're A, B, C, D, E,
Yeah.
whatever, but there was no timelines. This was, we're gonna develop whichever one we picked. That there was no rule.
But David, at the same time, I understand that I put up warehouses on this island. And I did A, B, C, D right down the line. It's phases, okay?
Right.
And thank God I did, because, I'm not gonna pick up politics right now, but the political turmoils of the time frame, we built like 6 with no problem and ran them out instantly. Then politics changed and everything changed and nobody was doing it, okay? So we couldn't get it. Then all of a sudden politics changes again, bam, I was able to put up 15 of them, sell out the whole place and be done with it. So you have to have that opening as a developer, especially something as big as South Point. And if you put a time frame on everything, the world changes too damn quick. I don't care what anybody says, and supplies are
And
terrible.
is that when you're required to come back and then move with the market in 10 years or whatever your time?
Oh, no, I have
is
no
and
problem with the
redo
10-year
that?
thing.
Yeah.
Like I said at the beginning, give me 5 years, not 2, okay? Because 2 years, I can't get through our Army Corps pension papers. Okay, so realistically, so now you're gonna bring the person back in and there's a different politics, okay? There's different politics, you're gonna have a different outcome, okay? So you don't really want to be able to change it too much.
So don't you take these PDDs on an individual basis? Or do you just look at a blanket, I mean, you have
You
to
only
look
have
at,
one, right?
but we don't have the flexibility of structuring a PDD the way that says, okay, here's your site plan, here's what you want to do, you know, give us your timeline on this thing, because we're gonna build it into your termination clause.
Yes, if it's in phases.
If it's in
Everybody's gonna tell you the same thing.
Well, yeah.
If the money's there, I'm gonna roll as quick as I can.
I'm gonna go back to David for a second. The issue comes back is David turns around and says, you have a PDD who's phased in. He builds phase one. How are you gonna take the PD away from him? Well, even if it's gonna take 15 years to unfold, how do you take a PDD away? You can't.
Well, you can't, because once he's created, it's like saying,
Once
sold
you
off
start-
a piece here.
So
So
the-
you're stuck with the
Not-
plan.
And a lot of that depends on the developer. Like Gun Creek sat there for how many years that was a
Right.
concept. Now that comes forward, they got their money, whatever, they decided to go forward. Well, they brought in a builder, Ryan, who was a mover and shaker. So now they just put in for another phase of 57 lots, I think, which is the biggest subdivision of land that Grand Island has ever seen. 57 lots at one time. Normally, they put in what, 10, 15,
Exactly.
you know, all the other guys. Once those are sold, 10, 15 more, 10, 15
So
more.
So the duration,
So-
what I'm getting at, the duration is, we're talking about the end time period. I don't see that being relevant to the fact that you got something moving. If the industry, the economy or something stalled it after the first phase, and it did put in phase one. I mean, this is the apartments, or not the apartments, the patio homes. The village green, or whatever they call it.
Look how long that's been going.
Yeah, so the issue is you can turn around and say it's gonna be 2 years. Well, you had a developer who came in and basically turned around and said, I don't want this no more, and walked out. And then he had to go find another guy, and then, of course, that's been doing itself out. So, but the issue comes down to is starting the damn thing, getting an investment into the thing is really the starting thing. Or you have something real. I mean, if you can put a phase in, you can put in the roads, you can put in your sewer and water. Well, then, okay,
Like when David just bought the PDD where the fire hall in front of the Channel 29, if there was a thing there that said, okay, you want to buy this PDD from whoever was selling it, you got 5 years to get rocking and rolling, doing something.
Right.
He might have said, wait a minute, I don't want this land.
correct.
I'm not going to be ready in 5 years.
Correct.
Well, right now, he bought it and it's sitting there, and now it's
Really
got
moving around.
some type of farming thing.
It's got an agricultural exemption on it, so their taxes went from $7,500, almost $8,000 a year, down to $4,000.
So
They're paying
how do
virtually
I
no
have a
school tax.
PDD that I'm now have sheep over?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
And how do you get a tax abatement on the property and therefore?
How do you get a tax abatement on a
So there should be
PDD
some
for
type of,
agriculture?
Well, it's like
Pick
the
a number
phases, the
out.
South Points, we had all those phases. Did we really get a concept plan for the corner of Staley and Baseline? For that senior or whatever they were thinking
no,
about putting
that's
there?
still,
There's really no-
that's
that's
an
still a
open end. That's
question,
still
right.
an open end.
So, but we know it's somewhat part of the project, but we really don't have anything set for that
So
corner.
when they broke up the ABC.
Yeah,
Those were all the whole housing part.
yeah.
And I think they kept those two pieces empty and said, when we're ready
see.
to do these, we'll come back to the planning board and start over.
See, that seems like an open window. I don't know. That's all.
Which one?
The corner of Staley and Baseline.
Where's
where
the
the light-
assisted living?
Oh.
Assisted living was gonna be on that corner.
Once at one
But
end.
they really never put, there's really no concept, there's really nothing in there, there was an idea, but there, all the A, B, C, and Ds were in there, that wasn't in there.
But those are all single family. I don't know if they've even brought, have they brought the town home projects in there yet? That's part of it, but not the apartment buildings or the retail space.
No, the apartment buildings, I think, were canned,
Okay, so they're like tentative retail or something there,
or like
there's parking lots.
senior something.
So, yeah, okay.
So Rhonda,
But
do
we
we have
still may
something
approve.
we can knock out as far as the intent?
Somewhat approved the
I just
PDD,
put-
but not-
I made it real short and sweet, just to kind of pull what everybody
Yes.
liked. It at least gives us something to work with. The regulations for planned development districts are intended to provide a means for injecting creativity into the design of the development of new residential, commercial, or industrial subdivisions. This is a tool that, while substantially benefiting the town in a manner not otherwise available through development under the town's existing zoning, will provide development that shall achieve the objectives outlined in the town's comprehensive plan.
That's great, except for the only thing, I think you need a stronger emphasis on the portion specific to a tool being used for benefit of Grand Island. Like that should, the whole paragraph should be, the first point should be for the town of Grand Island. The second point should be with using comprehensive plans.
Switch it.
It just feel like, yeah, something a little
Yeah.
stronger towards, but the whole point of it is for the benefit. You know, like everyone should be led by that,
So I'm gonna put that at
my
the
opinion, sorry.
I
front.
like that
Okay.
opinion. I think that in Jim Beck does the same thing, that it should be based on the fact, a code that benefits the town of Grand Island and that's creating a district.
How did this, how did we're just looking up the property designation in Erie County map, how did that Gun Creek get a PD? What's the,
I think it was 30 years ago.
yeah, what was, do you have no, you know, what the catalyst for that, like we talked about using residential and.
Right, how did that?
Like,
come
I
about?
always assumed it was this commercial, I didn't really realize till we read these that there's a residential aspect of PDD. So,
That's almost all
Well,
there.
that's a mixture
Well,
of
that's,
residential homes and townhouses.
yes.
Well, back then it wasn't
And
townhouse.
at one time, there was
That was
also
about
commercial development in there, and they pulled the commercial development out of it. So in exchange for doing more townhouses, you know, or
Right,
all together. Have you been down there and looked at them?
yeah, I've driven through.
No, drive through. That's all I say to people.
Many trees.
I just understand why somebody like, I don't know.
I don't know, it's right in between where I used to live and where Dee lives now, so, you know, it just kind of, I left the area.
Yeah, she went west.
I went west.
I don't know how that's better for the town of Grand Island.
I don't
Yeah,
either.
why,
I mean,
why
that
was
was,
that ever?
I'm
really
using that, that's my,
included?
it's now, I don't know, 30 years ago, someone.
They got to
Okay.
be different size
Creek.
lots.
They,
How's that better than the
on
town
on the left-hand side, as you go in Gun Creek, are very nice homes, okay, and everything else.
Mhm.
Then the main runway, if you come down that, there are smaller homes.
Yep.
Okay, then you go behind that, and those are townhouses, okay? And personally,
Are we
now
getting more
it's
tax
about,
though?
you're sure you're getting more tax,
The net tax proceed
because you got
is
more.
higher?
Sure.
Yeah.
Like that, those apartments over there on the boulevard are $93,000 an apartment they're assessed at.
Mm.
People don't realize that. And then everybody goes, oh, it's the kids. You bring in too many kids. There's 7, 8 kids that come out of that whole
Yeah,
development.
there's hardly any kids in there.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But once there's hearsay on Grand Island, it becomes fact.
Well-
And it's not fact.
right.
Let me help you out. All the stuff we talked about today, very good. We're at 3/4 capacity in the sewer plant. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah.
Another 5,000 people. You're done. There are no sewers. You won't have to talk about any of this. And my attitude is, it's long range planning, and we're supposed to look for 20 to 30 years down the road. You're not gonna see a sewer plant expansion on Grand Island, okay? And when you don't have that sewer plant expansion, we are not that far away from being capped out.
I'll get back to the benefit, what's the benefit of Grand Island, a townhome, we know the tax burden, right, of a single
Right.
family home.
Right.
The townhouse is right around the same spot on that, so how did it, like, to me, like, the math doesn't, it's quick math doesn't benefit. You have these spaces that were designed residential, I don't know how you guys number them, 1, 2, 3, 9, 11, but they're meant for bigger spacing, and then you condense it down. The net effect cannot possibly have positive, you know, all this PDD stuff should be focused on the commercial where you generate revenue with a lower share. Like, I don't like this PDD towards residential. I don't think it makes sense to me.
I mean, it doesn't,
100%.
well, again, if you're
Doesn't have
using
a
it,
developer.
right, if you're using it as a tool, what you're saying makes sense, because the issue is we're trying to control the growth of Grand Island.
Plan. We have a plan.
Right.
We have. a
So the
plan,
issue
sewer
comes
plan.
down to is we're
Doesn't
saying,
matter.
where do we want R2 to be? And that's where you're putting your townhouses, the R2, right? So the issue comes down to is we're controlling our growth by the way we turn around and put density. So we turn around and said, how did you get the population of Grand Island with the master plan in 1995? If you look at projected plan in 1969, the town of Grand Island would have had over 200,000 people,
We saw that.
200,000 people.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So then how did you take a plan and actually reduce it to an estimated 35,000 people? How would you go from 200,000 to 35? Well, then you turn around and said, everything on the west side is now 3 to 5 acre lots, not 1 acre lots
And no sewers.
and no sewer.
Right.
And then you turn around and say, R2 over here, because it fits that area, because it's natural, because it has mixed kind of densities in it. And we stick to R1A as much as possible. Oh, by the way, there's a whole section in the northeast side of Grand Island, there's no sewer, which again, 3 to 5 acres.
How are we gonna, we're not gonna be able to sustain that.
So the issue came down is that's how you turn around and determine what is the growth of a master plan.
Right.
Is by what do you do with land use?
You lose the room with people, I think, because I didn't think of bludgeoning on this. When people want to start arguing the development, you're cutting trees, deer don't know where to run, all that ridiculousness, right? That land, it's a mathematical problem. You take a percentage of that, there's green space, that has to generate revenue now and in the future. But the minute you start screwing with the revenue model for the residential end of it, where you overpopulate and it doesn't meet the math, you lose all credibility that you're doing the right thing everywhere else.
Yeah.
Right, so I don't understand that, like,
Yeah, why would you make a residential PDD?
Do you understand that the commercial pays more in taxes than the residential?
do I understand it?
Yeah, I know you do, right?
Well, you email once a day if you want to see.
But what I'm saying is, that's where you can't get out to the people.
That's our
And public.
summer weapon.
That's why
Well, when you
I
go
like the
down
apartment,
here.
and because that's considered commercial,
Right.
okay? The garbage is not picked up by the garbage company. The garbage is picked up privately.
Yeah, we don't plow them.
No, you're.
We don't follow the rules, we don't do
Well,
anything.
that's the thing you preach, and what I'm saying is, the minute you say that, then someone drives into Gum Creek and go, well, what about that? Then? Why is that allowed?
Yeah.
Because now you just added all that sewer, and you said that cost $1.20. You
That's
lose
right,
money.
that's right, we're
So
looking.
why, back to this doesn't benefit, someone did, it's just a, I'm a.
It
math
was
nerd,
something
it's
that
a
was done
math
by
problem.
others that we're trying to do
Wrong.
here is stop it.
That's why we would like to lower the PDDs for
Yeah.
commercial and industrial.
Right.
So we can get the development here, so that we have the tax base. Look at Tonawanda, they got 2 different tax rates.
Okay, we just shut ourselves in the foot with Amazon, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well.
and that was a huge
That was
chunk of
difficult.
tax base.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So, and that was a commercial thing that wasn't gonna use the stuff. And there's probably more benefits than we could imagine if people had an imagination, but not on my island, I'm here.
Yeah.
Nobody else can come.
Yeah, well, I basically.
Okay,
think
okay,
it was at a
so-
different level than us, but
You back to your, I got 1.5 hour here. So let's talk about duration. So one of the things is enforcement of the zoning code itself. Is it self-terminating? If not, completed within a given time? How long can the PDD designation remain with no activity in the project?
what do you? I mean, you guys know more
I
than
think
anyone.
everything is different. I mean, there's a certain level
Like I said, this one town writes them individually, the PDDs, and sets the termination clauses at different intervals, depending on.
Yeah, but I think Jim's got it. You give them a 10-year thing, if they're not gonna do it, and I'm gonna go down for a 2-year beginning, I want a 5-year, okay? So you've already split it in half, so now you've got a chance to, okay, you got all your engineering done, everything is fighting through all the processes, okay? Can be up in all the town meetings, all the stuff that's gonna go on in engineering and throughout. That's realistic timeframes, okay, in today's day and age. And I think it's easy to do it, and as long as it's renewable, if there is circumstances.
Yeah.
Then I don't have a problem with
of, yeah,
it.
but sorry, were you saying 5 years?
I think it
I'm
should
saying
be
10 years for the
like
project,
2.5 or
and then
3 years.
5 if you're not started, you
Yeah,
know what I'm
More
saying?
than just-
like
There's no
30
reason-
years starting.
Yeah.
All right. So 10-year is a duration. The question is, what is it they have to accomplish to keep their PUD?
Well, I think at least showing that you've gone through the process. You've got architectural drawings, you've got approvals from all the wetland people of the world and things of that nature. I can see that happening realistically today is a 5-year timeframe, not 2.
You don't think,
No way.
forgive me for being ignorant, aren't they coming in with that right from the start?
No,
No, you
That-
can't.
That's not. that's
You
not
could be an
part of it.
archaeological
That's-
for
that's-
5 years.
that's not
Rope
part
was
of it.
5 years archaeological for that golf course.
yeah, Bob Weaver on.
So they don't
Yeah,
have
yeah,
that
we-
kind of detail
Ten
coming
years.
in.
You're at the mercy of other government agencies.
Okay.
This is just one part of the agency. it's
Okay,
looking at.
so if you have,
PDD is a concept.
if you have the ideal scenario and you got a parcel of land, it doesn't have any of the big issues that just pop up with the core and with the architect or all the other crap that comes with it. All right, you could say 2 years, something could happen. But if you ran into that wall, then you have a renewal based on the fact that you have evidence that you've installed because of a Corps of Engineer study. Which means that if you're-
Jim, if I started today, I couldn't get anything done in 2 years.
Yeah, I think 2 years.
For residential development, commercial, it don't matter.
For completion or for a shovel in the ground?
Shovel
To get the shovel in the ground.
Yeah, I think if there
Yeah, I
has to be,
think the seeker could take you,
Paperwork and a
Yeah.
5-year on the shovel.
yeah, I think,
Okay.
I mean, Malta's got 5 years. Some of the other ones say, you know, 5 years if you haven't started a construction of anything. Some of them say if it's
We
in
don't really
phases,
have
if you
a-
haven't finished out stuff in 8 years, you've got 8 years, you got, 3 years to start, 8 years to finish. I mean, there's
we don't
all
have a
kinds of
time
different
frame,
things.
we just have a checklist.
Right, we have a checklist and I agree with the time frame. What I'm saying that I'm bending. Okay, I'll go back, I'll use myself. 20 years ago, the Indians wanted us, okay? I started a subdivision, okay? And the day all my manholes and pipe were delivered is when the lawsuit hit, okay? That day I called my banks, withdrew all the money and said, we're not gonna get the money. Okay? Now, I've been Clarence doing the exact same thing. It took me 6 months from beginning to end to get all the paperwork done in Clarence. It took me 2.5 years on Grand Island. And then the Indians came. That took another 2.5 years for me to get it done because that all came out of my pocket. Okay, because the bank said, we're not touching you. We can't give you more.
Yeah,
I agree
I
now.
think the principle behind it though is like you're progressing towards your project and your step of things
The
that
goal
have to
is
be
not to
done.
have something.
Things are
sit
being
for 30
stamped, things
years.
are-
No, and then that's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
and then that's what I'm saying, the 10 and the 5 are realistic, okay? And I truly believe that.
Do more projects stall because of a poor developer or the government?
I'd
I know what
say,
you're gonna say,
I
but I
think,
don't-
Market, it could be like right now, I mean, Bill's.
okay, Clarence, Ron Huntress just won $6.5 million against town of Clarence because they moved the water and he's afraid of frogs, and he won that in court. But he had to have guys pick up frogs in
The
front.
process takes care of itself.
No, it didn't. Now the government has stalled him 100% on his development. They just keep throwing more stuff on top of him because they want to punish him because he won all that money in court against them. So any town can do that. Any government agency, if you piss off the Army Corps of Engineers, I know a guy that was a GM for Channel 2 that couldn't put blocks in his thing in front of his yard nicely because he pissed off somebody for 20 years. And
All right.
finally get it straightened out,
All right.
20 years.
Does the change in size though change the nature of time? So if you're saying big projects and 25 acres or bigger is used to be the minimum, and that take bigger project just more to simpler, right? So if you move something down to 5-10 acre, whatever you end up deciding to do you need as much time?
You're gonna be in the same time frame.
Because I'm a progress guy, like stuff has to happen once I don't want to stay sitting for a decade.
I don't wanna see it sitting for a decade either, that's why I said give it 5 and 10. 5 to get through the
Okay, that's
paperwork and all that
reasonable
stuff,
with
that's
small
reasonable on small projects. I think that you saw, look at what Amazon went through on their thing, a couple of years before they
I
finally
think
said.
there's a
pull the
difference
plug.
on processing.
And they got all the
paperwork
money in the
and doing nothing. You're getting
I
PDD
totally
and
agree.
sitting to the side and saying, all right, this is my dump and I'll get to it
Small.
for my end of my retirement development plan.
Well, what do you mean by 5 to 10? I mean, are you, what we're saying
I
is
want
that
5 to start at the beginning, okay, and 10, if you haven't done nothing in 10, it's gone.
well, okay,
That way you can't do what's being done on Whitehaven Road.
so you want to be 10 years before you pull it, before you terminate. it.
Yeah, terminate it.
Well, yeah, but let's
That's a long time.
define start.
Plan started, is that you're gonna, it's just the process itself, so it start to begin the first day, you bring it, not shovel the ground. Shovel the ground, I'll be done in 6 months.
Overlay is 2 years.
You haven't done
2 years to
something
get
on the ground for 2 years.
Right, right.
But
Yeah.
so why would you push it for them? You can
I don't
show,
think, I
you
think,
can show that.
That's the-
I mean, I think.
Yeah,
You're
starting-
acting-
having-
You give them 5 years to get this on the ground.
It's not like, it's not
If
like
you
you're
haven't
not
started any
started
construction
already.
in 5 years, I think that-
You're
Okay,
accurate.
all right. Let's close this up. So we'll lose Eric in a second.
Yeah, sorry, I gotta go.
I like his voice.
Gotta get picked up. You can more, so
You didn't pick
I
that?
gotta stay married, I gotta leave my kid or else.
Oh, when you be done.
Yeah, I'm no good to you to work.
We will never have you again.
Quick question, backyard okay?
What's that?
Backyard okay?
Yes, in the rain.
I know. You're welcome.
Show the
You're
weather.
welcome.
I knew you could do that. You run a chamber.
He's doing awesome.
Take care, everybody. Sorry.
All right, question, self-terminating. Is that a strong support or not?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, definitely.
Strong terminating.
That way it doesn't matter what
Right, then,
town board and how.
Just take a
Yeah,
look
right.
at
There's
that,
no
that,
Take the politics
the
out.
automatic termination in Malta. I think they've addressed it adequately.
10 acres or less, or 10 acres, minimum of 10 acres,
no, 10.
minimum of
I
10.
think you're getting too small.
I think 10 is.
You had minimum of 25.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think you would.
I would have almost said 15, but I think 10 is small, when
I-
you start
I-
breaking things down.
Well, 10, you ruined the hotel program.
Yeah, but are you talking different amounts for different sizes, or are we taking 10 for everything?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah,
I want to ask the question now. A PDD is, in order to get a PDD, there needs to be a combination of commercial and residential. It cannot be just only residential.
Yeah, I don't think.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, well, that's what we've been discussing
That's
here,
the whole-
because
that's the whole thing.
you can do residential under the current plan.
Well, isn't that
Under the
what,
current
I'm
plan.
gonna use the hotel as an example. They want to do apartments, but they're gonna put a restaurant under there, say considered commercial residential.
Yeah.
yeah, that's why they need to have a PDD there.
That's why I think that's PDD all by
Mixed
itself.
use,
Right.
why-
The one
why
that
not
should have been
do
was done
mixed
free.
use?
Mixed use,
Right, because that's all residential.
not one use,
because there's
but mixed
no-
use.
It's
But-
all
but-
R1.
But Gun Creek, the reason they call it mixed use is because they put R1A, R1B, R1C, R1D all into the same pocket. The land was zoned for R1A. So in order for them to put R1A
Smaller lot.
in smaller lots and smaller
Still
lots in
residential,
townhouses,
different size.
they were all residential, but different size, the density of the residential, and that's why they call it mixed use.
So mixed use is not always, apartments or something living on
No.
top and business
No.
on the bottom.
Correct,
No.
Right.
correct.
So
Mixed
you need
zone.
to specifically say commercial.
But it's not
and
commercial. Commercial mixed use would be however we defined it to be.
Right.
And so that can be different than.
Oh,
a
it's got
PDD.
commercial, if you're just to do the commercial
That's what I'm
buildings or
getting at.
commercial.
I know.
Right.
If you were to do the apartments, they're commercial, okay? So you just put them together, so as far as I'm concerned, it's commercial. If you want to call a planned development district to put it together,
Then why can't we do that now? If apartments are commercial and retail is commercial, why can't we do mix those two things together now if they're both classified as commercial?
The different types of use of commercial,
Apartments are considered
three.
R
see,
three,
we split everything up into,
Not commercial.
the one time the lawyers came in and.
So you have-
had a nice
you
little
have-
pyramid,
so,
now we got this pyramid that's all over.
Right, you
the
got
place.
B1 and you got R3.
okay, I got you. All right.
So-
Yeah.
If mixed use is different than a PDD, what's the benefit of one over the other?
If we had a mixed use zoning,
And we don't have any zone on mixed use.
correct,
We have a PDD on
It's
the
two
book.
things, but we're
Mixed
using a
use is
PDD,
not on the
with
book.
the zoning we don't have.
correct,
We don't
Right.
have-
correct.
Want to pencil
Is
the
there anyone
scanner?
in here or is just her?
What's that?
Somebody yelling out there, I don't want to run off by herself.
So you're gonna be R1 residential
Mhm,
homes, single family home. R2
mhm.
is gonna be townhomes,
Right,
R3 is apartments.
okay, All right.
Then if we want to go further, you're gonna go M1, B1, B3.
Well, back 20 years ago when they did that, of splitting up the zoning, they didn't have this concept of putting businesses in the apartments above. But if you go way back in time, we did. City of Buffalo had it everywhere. And then the building codes strangled it. Okay, now the building codes have made it so that you can do that. That's why Buffalo's booming. Niagara Falls not so much, but
So some of that mixed use we had on the boulevard that are all gone now, we're not conforming use. Like there were apartments over where Bell's used to be over the top of where there was apartments. Remember where Bell's used to be down the boulevard by,
I'm sure that was something acceptable at that time.
At that
until
time.
the codes.
you see the codes, there's all the
Codes.
code
over Big
driven.
Willie, somebody.
Big
lived over
Willie's.
Big Willie.
Oh, yeah, Big Willie, somebody lives
Yeah,
up there
okay,
for
there's
Big Willie.
people living up on the bowling alley, but
Yeah.
that don't, you have to understand.
I was gonna mention.
But it's into enforcement, it's into all those things that don't get done and just kind of cough and look the other way.
If you turn around, the reason I was stressing is to turn around and say PDDs would be not consistent in one type of use, meaning residential versus commercial. By putting commercial and residential together, that is basically mixed use, okay? So now we're addressing it in a fashion where you can start to mold what is in the comp plan, because that comp plan is really calling for the mixed use. It's calling for residential and a commercial to work together. Well, if you put the PDD together, it answers the question, right? But it also pigeonholes it to the fact that the PDD should be used for those type of activities, not to be driving residential only.
Right.
Commercial
Again,
only,
it's a tool to achieve your comp plan,
correct,
because we don't have mixed use zoning to
Correct.
use to achieve it.
Yes.
So there's our first sentence where it says that.
and it has,
in
and it
instances
has
where we
more,
don't
fle-
have proper
and it
zoning.
has more flexibility, they can be used in multiple spaces that actually will accomplish the objective. So Love Road could move forward. River Roads could move forward, because that is the one piece that is not in place, meaning the mixed use zoning, which we don't want to open that door. So the bottom line is, okay, well then you do have more control with the PDD to control that mixed use and how you're going to implement it. And it also pigeonholes it so that the mixed use is going to be used to basically support the comp plan on even designs that's actually been put forward by the comp plan that's being used in the hamlets.
A question, if you had a mixed use code, would PDD be gone?
No,
You still would keep both.
I was default.
Why would you implement an overlay then?
The overlay would only come if you're going to use mixed overlay. Then I would use it in a different type, but right now, even mixed use is not in the comp plan. But if you're going to answer the question by having a tool, if the tool is going to be the tool to actually accomplish the objective of the comp plan, then PDD can apply.
Hit the buzzer now, hit the buzzer now.
Yeah, you're right. PDDs are a better way to go right now, because when you get to mixed use, that's, if you zone something that is mixed use, then it's a right.
So why not put an
So,
overlay on all the
so
hamlets?
how do you define what the mixed use is? Okay, I'm gonna put this, and this there. Those are all allowed in the mixed use, and I'm gonna put them all in one building. Or I'm gonna do it this way. So if we have a PDD, at least then we can say, you gotta come to us and we gotta approve
You have
you.
the plan. the road
Before you
plan, it
can do
becomes the
any of
plan.
that, we gotta take a look at what we're gonna allow you to do
And
there.
the
I
other-
suppose.
And the other issue, because of stipulation, and your friend Ron has said, which is an important component, that it must be consistent with the town's comprehensive plan. Which means we already have hamlets that are developed within the comprehensive plan, meaning that your PD must comply to what has been in the concept plan for the town of Grand Island in this comp plan.
Yeah, so in other words, they can't put one.
Yeah.
You
So
know,
if you don't have the PDD, the Holiday Inn project would be dead.
And we can't get the mixed use to actually apply to it and be, again, I want to pick it up and use in different spaces. Well, with a PDD that's consistent with the comp plan, then now I pigeonholed it to the areas of Hamlet,
Let me ask you a
Yeah,
question.
because it's the tool to get there.
correct?
If you're trying to get this PDD, and we're gonna argue this much over the thing, you're not gonna get this ready for these guys with the timeframe they've got for.
Yeah, we do, because the time frame for what they're asking for, is there a mechanism for them to accomplish their objective within the 4 months? The answer would be yes. If we're turning around and putting something together that basically can be implemented. I mean, it's got to go to the planning board
Yeah.
and it's en
We've got
route to
like
be
2
done.
more months,
They got the tools to be able to do it. I mean,
2 planning board meetings.
Okay. There's enough time.
to the
How
intent,
many
I'm
acres, how many acres do they have?
they have 15.
Okay,
They're
so,
giving some of it up.
They are, but they're not giving up any more than 3 to 4 acres as far
That's
as
why I
I'm
have to do
concerned.
time. They're done.
They were gonna hit the 10 acres.
They're gonna get the 10.
They don't still
Plenty.
part of the site.
Where is the
though,
plan?
right?
How many acres?
That would be
Plenty
part of the
acres, but-
PDD to take a portion of their acreage
I don't
and
know, maybe
use something that
17,
benefits.
28,
The community,
I don't know, it's not that big. Maybe,
right, and it's still part of the comp plan, it's part of this.
Now, could you give the
10, I
PDD
think.
to, let's say, the.
Yeah, so we can-
So when he moves out of his
If we
motor home in
implement
the back, we can tear it down. and put a new
incent,
one.
strong incentives. Yeah, on top of
he
that.
wants too much for it.
PDD. Does that make any sense?
That's a
Yeah, well,
separate
put the
thing, though,
motor
that's
home,
another
so
thing.
That's
So
what you're kind
like,
of working at, yes.
You do the
Listen, I
PDD,
try to do my homework.
I question that.
It's
all
very,
the
very
day,
well.
it's all over.
That's what they're doing. They're gonna give that
Yeah,
very land
I
into the
remember
town
saying that, yeah.
as an incentive.
So, hey, here's some sugar.
So
and-
Well, just not only just give it to the town, but they have to develop it on behalf of the town.
That's
And
part
then-
of it.
Are they gonna put out the piers for the Norwegian cruise lines? I'm assuming?
Yes,
Very good. That's all I cared about. Very good.
I have
So-
a question, if it's sold as a PDD,
What's the name?
in the time frame to do
Anytime somebody's
something,
gonna pick
does the
something up and give
time frame
I'm
then
in.
revert and they get a whole new 5 years? Or do they still have the original time?
they're
frame
gonna
they
have to come back to
go?
the town.
They're gonna-
There's
yeah.
where I think the trickler is gonna be is, in front of my concern, is that if the PDD is converted to another owner, the owner then has to go back to the town to certify his timeline.
And
in
he
order-
still has to stay with the
So it's a
time frame.
transfer of
Right. For the transfer of property. I mean, otherwise, they're gonna keep I know one guy, basically, he keeps making a company every time he does something to say, oh, well, I just sold it to the other company, but
So
he's
I
owning
think
the
that
other
needs to
company.
be added in there.
Yeah.
It's self-terminating, and if the PDD is sold to a new owner, transferred to a new owner, then the timeline needs to be established by the town board.
Right. Yes,
Wouldn't it be the timeline that the first owner had?
first owner,
Oh,
but
okay, guaranteed.
if they're gonna have to come back to the town and ask for an extension.
Right. yeah,
Okay.
Yeah,
I
the
misunderstood what you
PDD, the
said. I think it
PDD is
should
the
stay.
PDD, it doesn't
Correct,
have to stay with that owner.
correct.
Right.
That's the issue with the PDD, is the PDD is PDD, no matter who owns it. And therefore, they have to comply to that. There's where I have a problem, is that a PDD then goes to a new owner, and the new owner comes in and says, I can't build that.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden it comes back
Well, then
to,
why'd you buy it?
that's right.
Well,
It's like
yeah,
buying
Before you
Yeah,
buy it,
yeah,
you better come back to the town and talk to the town and say, is there a window of opportunity to change the PD and morph it into something else
Before you purchase it.
before you
Which is
purchase it?
what this is kind of done. Let me see what we can do before we.
Right.
And
I think
if you
PDDs
allow
give
that-
more creativity to the project than mixed use. Mixed use basically is cold, it says this is commercial, it's residential, but it doesn't bring in the concept of making it more creative.
So when we put this self-terminating in there at whatever the years are, we're also gonna add in there, if the PDD is transferred, the original timeline remains.
Yes. Unless amended by town board.
It is 10 acres, a little over 10 acres.
Thank you. I knew you-
Okay, just as an overall question, it could answer for
That's why I
anybody,
was
but how
shooting
does
10.
generally the planning
With
board
that.
accept these? Are they happy to see these or, yeah? Figured.
No,
I mean, I
No,
watched,
because,
just, just to see where
because
you.
we're more
back up from.
structured with. Hey,
We're
here's
trying to
my,
follow this.
here's my pullout, here's what you can do, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah,
Here's you can do this, and this, and this.
and now the town wants to go
And
willy-nilly
then
when
now
you're
you're gonna say,
fighting for.
okay, all
yeah.
this is gone, and the blueprint is the new code.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not so,
It's not so black and white,
Right.
but at the same time, you said the two PDDs that came into you, wowed you.
no. no.
Rivertown did.
Rivertown.
Rivertown did,
was
and
the
Amazon.
only- Well, yeah, but
Speaking for
Amazon
himself.
is.
How about-
Okay, but I'm just saying,
How about Love Road?
how about Love Road?
He didn't come in as a PDD.
No, he didn't. He tried to, because he didn't have, didn't have the.
Doesn't have the
He
acreage.
didn't have the acreage.
Well, you have the acreage.
South Point was already existing, Gun Creek was existing,
Okay, so
so
if we reduce it to
Rivertown-
10, then that makes,
Rivertown made sense because of all the different zones. in
Yes,
that
no, no,
25
we got that,
acres. That
yeah.
made sense, and what they were proposing, we went, wow, this
Do you,
is,
do you, let me ask this question, do
But
you
then-
feel you're gonna get that many because we make this available? Do you think we're gonna get that many? Cause I don't know that many lots that are commercial that would fit this plan, to be honest with you. I think we're just making the PDDs for the plans that are in front of us right now, personally. I don't see any place
I
else.
don't know about that. I'm looking at it I'm looking at it from this.
Yes, I got that.
This is, this is what's driving me.
Right, right, I got that.
So
I hope
I'm
we're not-
only using
I
the
hope
other,
we're not doing this for strictly the Holiday
No.
project.
I'm looking at,
No, but I'm just saying, I think they'll cover Holiday and Chris Shores over there and,
Chris was there.
and at some point in time in a wishful world that they tore down the plaza and they could have, it would make sense to a developer to
Here's
come
your
in and tear it
commercial,
down and put
170, oh,
Yeah, put
170
one
lots.
floor of,
businesses
and 3 floors of apartments.
Yes,
Right,
514 acres of
and he would
commercial.
be under the 10-acre program.
yes,
So,
yes,
it would
yes, that's what I'm saying, that's
we
why I want to
benefit
come to
from
this
it.
contract.
On the other side of the street.
Supposed to be thinking 30 years out.
Right.
Other side of the street, where fast now.
And then I think.
I think Van Sand will become a PDD at one point.
I
I
don't know what the-
I don't think it's,
plan is, How much
it's a
lots
not
are really left. I
Okay.
believe there's not a lot of
No.
25-acre lots left.
so I found this customer information. This is a plan to use development project description and owner statement of intent, which I thought was quite interesting. Because it basically has a bunch of hoops to jump through to actually accomplish its objective. I
You
mean,
guys might want to look.
there you go like it, it's got a lot of paperwork.
Yeah, paperwork.
it's a one page.
Got a checklist.
Well, I think at a certain level, though, there's something that you could put all this in the books, but if it can't be implemented and done, which is half the reason why we're doing after one of this, so.
Well, I think all we want to do right now is clean up the regulations a little bit, take down the acreage and make them a little bit, make it a little bit smaller and put a determination in it. So it's really got three changes that we want to make.
I guess we can turn around and say recommendations on this whole thing is one, you can have a major and a minor. The 10 acres could be the minor and then 25 acres becomes the major.
How to,
Major and a minor PDD.
Yeah, but what if you only got 21 acres, that turns into a 10-acre one, so everybody just sells off a couple acres, go to the easier one.
Yeah.
I'm gonna,
I know.
I could
I know.
go around.
I'm just
I'll
saying,
look at rules
and one in Minnesota, not
And I
Minnesota,
know that.
in Milwaukee, they have two.
Like
So-
to see a PDD on every repurposed commercial building that could possibly be here.
Yeah.
So they get stuff.
It's still gotta have, you still gotta have a site plan that
Yeah.
fits the comprehensive plan.
A
Well,
lot of-
put
a lot
your
of
back-
site plan,
I don't know.
A lot of that.
Yeah, I know.
Is right in our.
so do we
application.
look at, are you looking at
I'm just
10
saying
acres
they
for
would-
residential or maybe, I don't know. That doesn't make any sense.
Mm.
What do you look for commercial? Do you think
Well-
you leave it 3, do you take it to 5?
Well, no, that's why I turned around. I dumped that whole thing and just went to the fact that the PDD is required, basic requirement is the commercial residential. That way,
And 10-acre. minimum.
in a 10 acre minimum.
Right.
That way you're stuck right there, lock it down. And therefore you're taking away the element of residential being a PDD and therefore stuffing all kinds of residential in a pocket of land. I mean, the
They can still
cluster,
get subdivisions.
you also
but they
have
can't
clustered-
take anything else.
right, on the book, there's also cluster development,
Oh,
Right.
please.
right? Cluster.
It's just what it
A
sounds.
townhouse is, yeah. Cluster, a townhouse development is a cluster development.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
taking,
Over to-
is taking high density and packing it into a space and leaving all the other space open. Therefore, the town board has the ability to implement cluster development. When a project is brought forward, like a PDD, they can turn around and say, you're a cluster development. So if you're residential, you can walk in. I'm sorry, but you can bring back a cluster development here. And because that'll give us the density we want, that you want, but you're also giving us more open space for the town of Grand.
So if you're looking at saying it's commercial residential, how much commercial versus residential would you need it to
I'm
be in
not
order to
saying
qualify?
that.
Can somebody come in and say, I'm
No.
building a house, and
No,
I'm gonna have a barber shop?
no, you gotta, well, it's gotta be 10 acres a minimum. You gotta, that'd be a big ass
No,
barber shop.
That is an argument, though.
Well, good thing to say, but I have a funny feeling you're not gonna get at, but that's beside the point.
Okay.
It doesn't make it.
Your cluster is 25 and 10, so 35% open space. The cluster development.
In a
Whenever
cluster.
we bring this up to town board,
they freak out.
Developers kind of go.
Yeah. Well,
Gone.
Well, that's,
Well, the reason is,
cluster
but the issue
development.
is the 35 acres of open space, is they're not losing the density of the land. They're saying, I'm gonna have 6 per acre come in. Okay, you got 6 per acre, cluster it. And they're looking at me, well, wait a minute, now I gotta get 35 acres of land. No, your 6 per acre still remains 6 per acre. You're not gonna get more than that. You're doing it in a cluster, meaning you're not gonna have a cookie cutter with lots all broken out. You're now gonna turn around and bring her in and have a tight community with just 2 things. One, infrastructure costs are going to be reduced.
Less road.
Less roads, less piping, less everything as far as infrastructure. And you're getting the max out of your property. So why you wouldn't use cluster development and why they wouldn't consider it? I gotta ask the question, what is wrong with your thinking? Talk about what it is to build a 10-acre subdivision and then cluster it and think about the infrastructure charges you just saved.
You built 60 houses.
I think they just perceive that they're
That's 6 per
losing
acre.
lots.
Yeah.
They're losing lots. The developer just.
Yep. He
When we
doesn't
brought
get it.
that up to
Yep.
Whitehaven.
Yep.
I think he just thought, well, you just took all my lots.
Yep.
Cluster development, single
What we
family,
lost.
or is it?
No, it could be townhouses, it could be houses, it could be hamlets, I mean, it could be a really, there's a lot of unique
I
designs.
don't talk to cluster development.
But you're not losing your density. So if you have a house per acre and you have 20 acres, you got 20 houses. If you turn around and pick the 20 houses and make a nice little nick of it, and then turn around all the open space that comes around them, the town wins because it gets to the vista. They get to win because they got infrastructure costs that can be reduced, but they haven't lost the footprint of their ownership. The landings.
You said less land. Well,
They'll
your
have,
landings are
they still have the same land. Okay, so I'm gonna fight the issue on the 10 acres, okay, no less than 10. 15% of open space? It was 25%. I'm good with 25% on 10.
Well, and what we're saying is you're good with 25% on 10, but I'm coming in and I can't make 25% of my plan, so I want to discuss that. Can we
Zoning.
negotiate?
That's zoning.
CBA.
ZBA.
So do you think
Can I come in?
as a developer that the 25% right out of the gate is gonna be a showstopper, they don't even want to talk about it?
Well, they always want to talk to me.
Well, then there you go.
That-
Why
that's-
why would it hurt to have
Well,
25%?
gotta give you a reason though, so as far as I know, it's gonna be a 25%, because I don't see you overriding that. So whatever number you put in the book, ain't getting overridden by the zoning board. That's why I said 15,
Ah.
okay? He didn't want to go down to
When you
10.
get on
Okay,
subdivision,
so what
10.
that's what I'm saying.
I was trying to negotiate it here.
Why want to negotiate
I
with
think
you?
everything.
25?
After.
Well, so if we're
Right.
looking at commercial residential development, 15% of open space is a lot of open space for commercial. You gotta have a parking lot, number one.
Like, I mean, we've had people.
You gotta give me a reason. I added extra house, so we make more profit for yourself.
We're
We
like,
can't do
well,
that.
yeah.
Okay,
It's right in our
so
rules.
you have
That's
to
why I
let
wanna
me
make the
turn
rule
around and
15.
take that part of it.
You see what I'm saying?
Then
That's
we'll-
doable.
Then I would turn around and leave it at 25% and let the planning board turn around and figure it out.
But you don't want to do something like with the islands that every
We've
time's
got-
gonna be overridden, so you're just adding another 30 days into the development process, because they gotta have the town board override it every time.
You're gonna build in delay.
You know,
you're
kind of
gonna
the same
build in
thing
some
that we
privacy.
talked about. You
Yeah.
like
and
the
redesign.
islands, but they're always requested as a,
So
to be
the
taken
way-
out, so then it
to be
goes back
waived.
to town board.
You have to
comes
turn
back
around and say
to-
it's being waived. You gotta turn around and
They
say
always
there.
make that as part of the motion.
Okay, compromise 20%.
So the one property we know that was
No,
done
you change it.
was wavelengths, that property. Do they have 25% green space there?
No.
No,
So how, that must have been a waiver to
That's a
put
business.
into property.
that was a business
Business,
location.
Right, so what is the?
And that was
percentage
the
based on that?
only way
Yeah, I know that.
you
I was
could
just
build
wondering.
that building.
Oh, yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
Any building.
Yeah,
It wasn't like he didn't try.
yeah.
He
Oh,
did come in
no.
with multiple
I
plans.
just wondering what the
Nothing
green
would
space
work.
percentage is was on that.
Commercial is, like I said before, it's tough. You gotta have so many parking spaces, you gotta have,
But This
You
isn't
know, all that
all
stuff, so it's-
commercial.
you're losing some of your green space. by
I'm
having
trying to
the
This
parking
this
spaces
was
there.
more
We're not talking. PDD,
I'm losing the
no, we're
retention
talking
part, because now
We're
everybody's got to.
talking PDD with mixed use.
He did, right, yeah,
But
we
we
are
are
based on
right now.
retention.
Yeah.
Thing that's
So
not-
he did the underground one.
Yeah,
across
No,
the
but
front,
still,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
cost them more money.
Yeah.
I mean.
But I'm trying to think of what that was, so,
PDD.
and you could technically put
Very,
parking
very
on top of that, but I think that's.
Challenge piece of property.
Yeah,
put
I knew that,
commercial
that's
in
why I
there with
used that as an
parking
example.
spaces, And then still look at residential, where you have to have 20%, where you have.
But
to have-
what the hell they enter? I'm sure they've got
That's why
more
you
than
gotta have all that.
25%.
Yeah.
Right,
So he's just.
on that 10 acres.
Right, we do.
New places that are-
So,
But you can have 10%, 20% open space on 10 acres, that's 2 acres. That's, 80,000.
Well, they're taking the parking lot and actually stripping the parking lot that's on the north side and turning it into their open space because they intend to return that to lawn
In the riverside. right?
on,
Or
on
the marina.
That's a house,
marina, yeah, the marina side.
Oh,
So
you're
they,
talking about the house.
No,
if you talk about, if you're saying, does it work? Can a plan work? The answer is yes. They can make modifications to the project to accommodate the 25%. If they
At
can,
least show effort, so the
well,
planning
I'm
board.
kind
can
of
like-
thinking that if you're gonna have, the requirement was 25 acres and you're gonna drop it to 10 and give them that huge benefit, I don't know if you should take away the 25% green space.
So they're still looking down to
no,
seven.
I'm back to 25.
Right,
I'm
but you just gave them a huge gift.
Yeah, I get it.
Hold on.
I get it. I get it.
I'm gonna play a little double advocate for you. Hollies never need that parking.
No,
Never, never.
ever.
Our parking thing here is way over,
Well, like
Yeah.
you're
way,
talking about-
way too much. And nobody's ever addressed that, and that I hope we can address in this, because that's one of the big problems.
Right.
If you did go down Dave Major's place, and we're just talking about commercial, no landscaping, no that, it's never full. We could have had green space.
When the warehouses that are built would be in those truck stops.
Huh?
The warehouses over where Amazon is, with those big warehouses get there, you could have the trucks that come in, that could be a nice little truck stop. spot
Can't
there
have
that
truck
they
stops
got.
on Grand Island.
I'm like.
No, only the state of New
Yeah,
York
no,
can have a
no,
truck
no,
stop.
Dave Mazar
So
said,
if only-
when I
State of New
went
York.
through the first one, I
State of New
counted
York
the
can't have a truck
spaces.
stop?
They get a
And
truck
went
stop.
there in the
That's what they
middle
got
of the
right over there.
day.
Well,
They
yeah, they
made
have a
the
place for
things
trucks
up
to
and
park at
running,
night.
and I was like,
Technically, it's not a truck.
why do we have all these
Stop.
parking?
Right.
Yeah.
So when he
Yeah.
did the second
Okay.
one,
Hi,
Huh?
we addressed
Yeah.
some of
all
that.
right.
I would rather have to go.
Open space, 25% revenue.
And
Okay.
Holiday Inn doesn't have any problem. handling-
Minimum 10 acres, 25% open space. Duration to start out, 2 years, 5 years.
Five.
Five.
You go 5?
That's what I said.
I would have liked this all like,
It's currently 2.
If it was 20 years ago, I would have agreed with you on 2 years, okay? But because of all the regulations and the more heaps and more stuff and more,
I'm talking start or shovel.
Start out,
start up.
No, we're talking shovel.
shovel.
Yeah, every shovel and five.
shovel and 5,
Shovel and
maybe
5.
2 years for some.
Start up again, so like
Engineering
he said, when does start up begin? Start up begins when you
Okay.
walk in the door.
Yeah.
Do you want to
Yeah, fine.
designate that now, or just?
You
leave
got
it
5
at
years, you got 1
years,
time to
and
get
they
ready to
can
go.
always come
I
back
agree.
in if there's a problem.
And as for extensions, right, by 5, yeah.
Right, and so they.
There
come
can be
in
a
and ask for
reasonable
an
argument.
extension.
Okay, so start up in 5 years, paperwork to be acquired within 2 years.
The start of the paperwork, something.
Oh, no, start paperwork should be, you gotta begin the clock.
Yeah.
He's right. The moment you come in and say, I want the PDD, clock just began.
Yeah,
Click, click, click,
I
click,
put
click,
it at
click, click, click.
PDD
Yeah, the minute you
designation.
make formal application.
Well, just to make the application, not getting it.
Application
Making formal
designation.
application, paying your fees, making formal application. It's not a presentation before, it's when you make formal application.
And
At
not
least it
when,
gives you a
and
chance
not
to
when
get
you
a,
get the designation, because look how long it took Amazon, and they still didn't get their designation.
Correct.
right,
But they made application
well, there was,
Should be from approval.
From approval.
From
for the
approval.
designation.
I would say
of it.
approval.
Approval. Once they're approved for a PDD, that
It's
starts the
approval.
clock.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll
because
take
the
that.
town couldn't, right?
I gave you a little bit more running to start.
yeah,
For approval.
And then you gotta come to the town and show them
Okay,
something, some engineered drawings. You gotta
Okay.
show that you've done something, that you just don't get your approval.
So
And
it's
5 years later, you come in and say, well, I haven't.
It's my concept land and.
Need an
Okay.
extension.
Yeah.
The oversight of that?
Planning board.
from a town perspective, for oversight, who's watching?
Planning board.
The planning board?
No,
I mean, when
the
it-
building
so the-
department.
so the
building
clock-
department.
the clock starts.
Our clock, when they-
So
when
who's
they-
watching the clock?
In here, zoning, yeah.
I mean, do we-
Oh, everybody that didn't want it to happen.
Yeah, that's what we thought, yeah. Okay,
But
You
next
should
year-
like a building
next year-
permit.
Okay.
The
so
nibbles.
Who's,
I don't want to even go down that, yeah.
the next
No,
piece,
no,
Real quick
You think so?
before you-
go ahead.
So-
I don't think, it's better coming from his.
Because I'm missing a part here. So it consists, the PDD will consist of commercial and residential. It must be a minimum of 10 acres with 25% open space. It's self-terminating if no action within 5 years of PDD approval. But that's no action's not what we're talking about. We're talking about shoveling the ground. What do you?
Take a
call
That-
look
it?
that's
at
the
the
next piece I was
mall.
gonna ask. The thing that I need now is, what is the trigger? The trigger is, we are not accepting paperwork as being done, right? We're
Right,
saying that it needs to be shovel ready. It's gotta be shovel implementation. So therefore, infrastructure of some type, water, sewer, road, must be the criteria.
Utility?
Huh?
The utilities.
Well,
That's
here
5
it
years.
says the
You're saying
effective
5
date of.
5 years.
5 years from the effective date of any planned development district established under this article. And it tells me, do null and void. If any of these things happen,
That's what I'm-
the site plan approval for the PDD has not been obtained. Now, that you get after you approve the PDD, correct? Or you get it before?
You would come in and ask for site plan approval of a PDD.
Okay, so
They're,
that's.
they're actually starting the clock before they actually get approval.
He said the effective date of the established under this article. Well, what
So
does
then
it-
we,
Is this us?
then our,
No, this
our
is,
recommendation will go to the town board and then the town board will approve.
okay, we need
That
that.
should be the start of the 5 years.
Okay, well,
I'll
it's
do
any of these things, no building permit has been issued or construction of any structure has not been commenced on any lands within the.
Well, that's the
So
5 years.
basically,
That's your 5
That's your
years.
5 years.
That's your 5 years.
But that's what we're asking for. We're asking
Yeah.
for, if these things do not occur, they automatically expire, the
Right, so
PDD.
you're expiring it at 5 years or you're expiring?
they're
at 10?
expiring with five,
Five.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 5.
So no, they're expiring that at
Infrastructure
5,
or
Right.
but if they, let's say they just start with the paper, get all things, they don't get anything in the ground, do anything after that point in time, the 10 years is completely gone, correct?
We're not doing 10 years. We're doing 5.
Yeah. And this one says with respect to any PDD in existence of effective date of this section, which does not contain. That hasn't been, have any of that stuff done, are done,
Automatically expired.
they automatically are.
Well,
done.
that would catch a couple
Well,
right
that
now.
would make sense, because just like Dan, you're saying if I get a ZBA determination, I've got 6 months.
Right.
And then I can come back and say, hey, when COVID hit, material, I can't afford the material, I can't get somebody to do the work. Okay, we'll give you another 6 months. Well, you got 5 years. If they come back in 4.5 and go, hey, we're stuck at the Army Corps of Engineers. Here's all our approved.
Right.
Done all this.
Give me an extension.
Right. You
They
get the
should be
extension.
able to get an extension.
Right, I
And
agree.
it does, the last provision of this one says is that, that they can accept a specific PDD from termination. By the town board can do it.
Right, the town board should be able to give them an extension.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's Malta.
Yes.
yeah, that's just
Yeah,
their
yeah.
I
termination
mean,
policy.
I like what they did in Malta, because bottom line is they have to have automatic determination. You have to have a criteria, things
Sure,
that are set in
absolutely.
motion to make sure it expires. You can't be arbitrary and say, well, it's been 5 years, you're done.
Well, if they have 54 PDDs, they must have been on top of this.
Yeah, what's going on?
Horrible.
Well, you have to understand, Malta's got some really heavy duty.
Okay, does that answer-
But let's just, yeah, so
That
then
answer
at the
question?
It's
end
a
of
little
that,
different town than us.
it's self-terminating. If there's no infrastructure or building has commenced within 5 years of PDD approval. If the PDD is, I'll use better words, but
Right.
if the PDD is transferred, the timeline remains unless amended by the town board. So
Right,
that's all the things we wanted to hit with our three questions here.
We did get there. It just took 2.5 hours.
It's okay.
And 10 minutes.
Not for a discussion. I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
This is another question that we've been, I'm hearing, there's talking about inspection.
Mixed
This is
use
that you only have to do it
commercial
at least like
residential
annually. So
was
once
killed in Buffalo.
or so only have to go look at the
When,
property.
when.
Once a year.
What killed it? Was it fire?
Building.
Inspections, other
Fire-
than that,
oh, yeah.
well,
But, well, there's one percent.
For good reason. I mean,
Yeah, generally, there's only one set of stairs going up.
There's only one way in, one way out.
One way.
And
So-
and you could-
So,
correct.
Here's what I think.
People were dying.
Correct. And they saw, it's
They're
kind of
gonna
like
take
San
our
Francisco, a house, they're all built like
Like
this,
we
each other.
feel required.
And they couldn't allow you to
They
jump
then
out the
gotta
second
take
story
it to
window.
this, and that's when they're gonna start doing.
So,
paragraph by
because there's gonna
paragraph.
So,
be-
you know, so.
So now you have a wacky
Building-
thing going
Yeah.
because the building,
Right.
buildings differently.
And then,
Yeah,
just,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, you gotta make
around
that.
and really have to shut up.
But they give you a way to do it.
Yeah.
See where they,
Yeah.
for a long time, it
Once
wasn't the way,
something-
you know.
Okay,
fire-
I'd like to introduce, at this point,
Rip the ceiling out.
with that, I'd like to
Fire
introduce,
proof drywall.
entertain a motion to adjourn.
so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for taking the time tonight. Sorry for the duration, seems so long.